Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Warner, but Boromant's got the inside.
Star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that Putin still lead. 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to PSGL 4, the 5th round of the E-Series Championship. And Josh, going into this one, we got a brilliant track. And we got a very close championship, haven't we?
Yes, it's absolutely amazing. It's a great pleasure to be able to be here once again with yourself, Nathan Richards. But no, championship, it's very close. It's very competitive all throughout the field.
Indeed. We'll have a quick look at the standings while we have some time quick before we get our way in, and you can see Williams Esports now have the lead on 161 points ahead of there. We can say for now the rivals being S7R on 149, followed by a very, very strong third to fifth being Race Clutch on 121, SRC on 120, and Ferrari on 120 as well. Then down in P6 we have RHG, who've looked a little bit stronger over the past races, followed by Veloce Academy in P7, TF10 in 8th on 77 points, then the bottom two being NVR on 59 and TES on 45. And Josh, as we was discussing earlier on in the VC, to make it even worse for Novus and Thomas saying Sim Racing, they both have double qualifying bans.
Yes, it's looking like a long day for them in the Styrian Alps, and also for Tony Rocher as well, handing himself a qualifying ban. A couple of these are down to perhaps a little bit of a relaxed management, not necessarily submitting the driver lineups in time, and then a couple of them are for blocking in qualifying. But it'll be certainly something to watch him come through the field, because we know the pace that a lot of these drivers have, especially the likes of Nico Benz and Tony Rocher. I feel like it could certainly be interesting, especially around a track like Red Bull Ring. In the Styrian Alps, it's a very interesting circuit, isn't it? You've got 6 to the left, 10 to the right over this 2.6 mile circuit. Normally it would be a 71 lap race, but I do believe it's cut down to 35, or maybe even 36 if we're feeling lucky. And we know how prominent this circuit can be. It's 79% full throttle. It's a very aggressive circuit on the tyres to an extent. So we are most likely going to be seeing a medium to hard compound sort of strategy, maybe jump in between either one of those compounds, depending on how much they feel like it would help them towards the start. Should I mention as well the use of safety cars around here? Played a prominent feature the last time we were here. Back in season 35, mid-round, ended up having to slap the soft compound tyres on under a safety car, and it ended up getting a fair few positions with only 2 laps remaining. So it's going to be something we're going to have to keep an eye on throughout the rest of this race, to be honest with you.
It will. I think strategy and safety cars are something that are quite prominent around this circuit, around all Grand Prix held at the Red Bull Ring, and hopefully we can get our way in very, very shortly, as we're just waiting for a couple more people to load in. While we wait for that, we'll have a quick look at the calendar, Josh, which we look at every time and we think, what a strong end to the season we have. And we'll look at Q1 in a second, because there's some very interesting things on our screen.
Very.
But, we could look through, obviously, we have a break week next week, gives me and Josh and the drivers a rest, and then we'll come back, of course, on March the 15th for the British Grand Prix, followed by Imola on March 22nd. 2 very different tracks, followed by then another very different track, being Qatar. It's a low grip, it's a motorcycle circuit. So, you know, I don't class it at all as an F1 circuit, because it's not. It was never built for F1 cars. And we have Mexico, Josh, of course, followed by Las Vegas and Brazil. So a North and South American final 3 races. What would you say is the track you're looking most forward to then in that 6?
Oh, personally, you can call it British bias as much as you want, but Silverstone, fantastic circuit. I love driving it. I love watching people go around it. I, for one, very much looking forward to it as well. But it wouldn't surprise me if we see the likes of Qatar and Mexico maybe throw a couple curveballs in the plans for the teams, such as F7R and Williams, currently leading the championship. But we are in the lobby at the minute, and it's certainly looking interesting. I can say that much, Nathan.
Well, we can see the lobby on your screens at the moment, and we can see a very sodden wet Red Bull Ring, which throws its own curveballs into it itself. We know that it can be wet quite commonly around here, speaking about that. I don't see very often wet races, but wet qualifying seems to happen all the time around the Austrian circuit. So this is going to be interesting for the drivers, and Louis Welch has gone out on a set of soft, because I believe that means to me that Q2 and Q3 are wet, because he doesn't want to waste intermediate tyres. We normally see that the other way round in Q1 with using inters to not waste softs. This time Louis has gone the other way round, so he doesn't waste his intermediates, which means Q2 and Q3, Josh, could be quite interesting.
I'll tell you what, we've got Weatherman Josh back on the good old green screen here. And I can confirm Q2 and Q3 are both looking to continue this thunderstorm-esque weather. And the rain's even it's forecast to get worse from what it is at this current moment in time. So potentially, it's a good job we do have these drivers who do have qualifying bans. So it can give them another opportunity to set another, save another set of tyres. Because all Louis Welch has got to do is just crawl around on track and make sure he gets a lap time in. And then he's already safe through into Q2.
And I've already noticed a bit of an issue here, Josh.
Yep.
Jack's out. Well, Jack isn't meant to be out because he's not meant to be serving a qualifying ban, which means someone, being Kid and Luck, will start in 15th, not in 16th. So, yeah, that's a bit of an issue because you're not meant to retire at the start because if you haven't got a qualifying ban, you're meant to set your lap time so you don't get caught out. Now, Jack will be starting in P17 for this race. So, Veloce Academy already off to a rough start here in qualifying, which is it's the last thing that they want. So good luck to, of course, Otis Lawrence, who'll be on his own for qualifying here tonight in the Veloce Academy team. And speaking about this lineup here, we've got a very strong lineup, of course, with Jack and Otis, as we see Louis Welch there go for a little bit of a spin in towards turn 3 as well. I think we all know that the soft tyres aren't the right tyres for these conditions, so we'll see him set up and probably then head himself back into the pit lane.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. A little bit of added info there, Will Buxton. Of course, soft tyre compound aren't normally used in these conditions for a very good reason. But Louis Welsh, he managed to keep it within track limits, so he's looking good. All he's got to do is roll it back round to the start-finish grid, and then he can wing it as much as he wants. But we do have the likes of Otis Lawrence, Alfie Butcher joining him on track at this moment as well. And I feel like we haven't necessarily mentioned yet that our R8G lineup.
Yeah,
you talk about a strong lineup, and you can think of some in your head, some unfeasible ones, and then you look at R8J and look Thomas Ronhart, Alfie Butcher. We know exactly what they're capable of. We know they're phenomenal talents. They should really see themselves trying to push themselves up the standing after this.
Oh, of course. I think we could be on for possibly a double RHG podium here, or at least a double RHG top 5. You look at the grids that some of these teams put in for E-Series, you think, it's a decent, solid lineup, but this lineup with Thomas and Alfie is like a Pro Series lineup. This is what teams want in the actual esports series, so this is going to be something today. They've got a lot to deliver, and I think the issue they've got is they got a lot of pressure because they've got an expectation to deliver a 1-2 or a 1-3, I think, here tonight. I think you look at the lots of Red Bull, IRL, they've always got that expectation to be at the front. This is what RHG have got to hold. They've got to be finishing near the front, and if they don't, it'll be rather disappointing because, let's be honest, they haven't had the best start to the season. They haven't had the best qualifying or race results, and they're down in P6, which is not really where you'd think they belong with some of the drivers they have. Of course, Thomas Ronhart being one of the best, if not the best driver on the game at the moment. You'd expect them to be higher than 90 points and be less than 60 points back off our championship leaders, Williams Esports.
Yeah, of course, but it's a lot easier to say, yes, it is a team. It's a lineup which a lot of teams would want. But at the same time, they've got a tall order here. It's not going to be a clear-cut sailing. I mean, we've got the likes of Otis Lawrence in the Veloce running in the McLaren. We've got both the Williams drivers of Kian Gorendorp and Ishmael Fassi showing what they're capable of. Of course, we've got Max Wiesel. And we was talking a little bit off camera earlier about Tycho Hardy and his performances for F7R. He's been one of the most on-form, consistent drivers so far at E-Series.
Yeah.
So, realistically, a 1-3 all of a sudden, if you add in all these different little variables which come along as well, it's not looking as easy and as a shutout as you might expect just by looking at that driver lineup. You've got to take into account that the drivers around him are also top tier and top quality talents. As we see Otis Lawrence there with a 120.9. Again, should see him safely through. If not, there's been a feature which has stopped it, let's be honest.
Yeah, I think as long as everybody sets a lap, they're through towards Q2, of course. Obviously, Keedon will be through to Q2, even though he's not meant to be, because of Jack West making his little retirements. But we have a few more cars on track, and making a return here to E-Series is Max Wiesel, Grandpa, as everyone normally knows him as. And obviously, he's racing, I think, once this season, got a 4th place in qualifying, finished in 4th place. But apart from that, the team at TF10 haven't really done much. Their finishing positions have been quite mediocre for the team and for the the reputation they hold within this industry of only 2 top 10 finishes in the last 4 rounds. So they've got a lot of work to do tonight. Obviously not with Tony Rashapin as he's starting in 18th place due to his qualifying ban. Whereas Max Wiesel, we know he can be looking for pole, especially in these wet conditions. So this could be something that helps the TF10 team. We see some more lap times coming through, and both the race coaches have gone out on a set of the wets, setting a 1:14 for both of them, whereas many of the others on a set of soft. So race coach don't seem too bothered by the fact that we have a wet Q and a wet Q2 and a wet Q3. So we'll see. Do they expect it to go to intermediate tyres, Josh?
Perhaps, but again, they're not the only team to do so. We've got both the Ferraris, and I do believe one half of the Williams with Kian as well, also going on that wet tyre. as we see Otis there retiring from the session. He set his lap time, he's safe. But, it comes into this understanding here of, yeah, they've just got to go do a lap. It's as easy as that. But at the same time, you're carrying around that risk if you end up running that soft compound tyre and just end up getting a bad exit out of turn one over the louder curb. You can find yourself very easily being put into the pit wall. So again, it's one of those things, risk versus reward. It might be safer for some of these drivers to go out on a set of wet tyres and not risk that, punishment of being knocked out in a Q1, or maybe not even being able to compete in a Q2, depending on how severe the damage could be. So certainly something we're going to have to keep in mind here. But it is lovely to see all these drivers just going out, doing the lap, retiring from the session, knowing that they can't be beat. As soon as they've got the lap time on the board, they don't need to waste any more time. They just want to continue on with this session and get you guys watching at home a little bit more of that entertainment factor.
Of course, and we know obviously here we have a points position for everybody first down to 20th. So, this helps the teams that don't qualify well in the sense of now they'll be starting at least in 15th place. They can get themselves some decent points. I believe it's about 8 or 9 points for a round being in P15. If they can get themselves any higher and they don't normally score very good points, that's even better for them. But the two teams who normally have to capitalise off this situation are the two who have been put in towards that bad situation, being NVR and TES. Normally they'd be happy that teams have qualifying bans so they can get themselves a little bit higher. But they're the two teams with the qualifying bans, which then, it goes from bad to worse. And to also include, Josh, that TES have a 5-second penalty to serve after their, for one of the drivers after the race as well, because of them getting 3 qualifying bans rather than 2. That makes it even worse, because we know pretty much generally they'll have one driver finishing last with that 5 second. We know around this grid how close it is, around, how close it can be at Austria. They've got, one of their drivers hasn't really got any hopes for a top 10.
Yeah, it's excruciating. It's almost adding salt into a wound. It's harsh, but at the same time, you've got to follow the rules, and that's something that they're finding out the hard way here in E-Series, isn't it? They're just going to have to keep rolling with the punches and hope to get a bit of a brighter spark coming back after the break week next week around Silverstone, and really trying to, reinvigorate their chances of finishing slightly higher up in the standings. It is very, it's not unfeasible. I'd say it is realistic for them to be able to go and get a couple of good points paying positions and slowly keep moving themselves up the championship. But again, it's more down to the lineups, what drivers they're picking, making sure they've got that comfortable aforementioned point gap to the teams behind, and just keep building on what they've got. And it'll be very, very difficult to build up from getting slam dunk with all these qualifying bans. It's almost, a weekly occurrence at this point. But on the positive side, the only way's up for them.
It is. Obviously, back in round 2, I believe we had, 4 qualifying bans there. Round 4, I believe we didn't have any, but then we come into this round and we have 5. So, it's quite a lot of people missing out on qualifying and missing out on putting themselves into decent positions for the start of this 36-lap race. We've got a few people now retiring once again, so we can get hopefully shortly underway for Q2, where we have a very interesting top 15. Obviously, only 14 of them will battle for it, being as Keaton can't set a time due to NVR's qualifying ban. So it'll just be 14 drivers fighting for the top 10, and 4 obviously will be going out, which, with how close this grid is and how, with the teams we've got here, this is going to be really, really interesting. We're definitely going to see some surprise names going out in Q2. But when we talk of qualifying, looking through, obviously, in these first 4 rounds, the likes of Williams, Race Clutch, they've been having an average of around 6th and 7th place throughout these first 4 rounds, which I think is something good for them to take in towards Q3, because they know for a fact they have a very high chance of doing so. But you look at teams like SRC, where at the start of the season they had a really good qualifying. That's qualified 4th and 6th back in Baku, but then after that they kind of dropped off, and that's put their average to around 10th, which is definitely something they're not going to be too happy with going through into these rounds, because their hope of a top 3 in the championship could be quite over due to that factor.
Yeah, it's one of those. You kind of got to take it with the good with the bad. You've got a lot of preparation time for that first round, but you can expect to see a slight fall off throughout the rest, and that's something that we can see with other teams here in the championship. SRC aren't alone. And it really gives the opportunities for the likes of Ferrari and Williams to slowly bring themselves back up to pace and get a resurgence. But that is the end of the Q1 session. All the drivers have retired, and Keaton has managed to sneak his way through somehow.
Of course,
lucky driver.
We look at some of the times here. Obviously, the soft times mean nothing, but the wet times we can take a little bit away from it, showing that the likes of Barry and Keane look very strong on these wet tyres. And obviously we go now quickly in towards Q2, which should be wet, because you've got your camera man, Josh, but my cameraman is Mr. Dylan Warren. Not cameraman, sorry,
Yes.
weatherman.
The weatherman.
Sorry, is Mr. Dylan Warren, who told me that it's meant to be wet for 60 minutes. Whether that means
Yes.
it's getting drier over those 6 minutes to winter weather, I don't know, but obviously we can see that now on our screens. Being as it is, obviously now a lot lighter, so we know it will be wet for Q2 and going into Q3. Could stay wet, could go dry, because we know the rain's getting less and less over the sessions. So if that trajectory continues, Q3 could be rather interesting. But we have a car out on track, and that is Thomas Ronhard, Josh, heading out towards turn 1. And he's a man who we should be looking at for pole. He's a man we should be looking at to take a win here tonight. And obviously with his teammate Alfie Butcher right behind, this could be a very, very good evening for the RHG team.
Absolutely, but as I mentioned before, we've got to keep an eye out for a couple of the other drivers, but certainly Thomas Ronhart is one of the favourites to pick up the win here tonight. Going out on the intermediate tyres, showing the track has slightly dried a little bit. The rain's coming down less, as you mentioned, so I feel like it'll only be a matter of time until we could potentially start seeing a couple drivers try and risk it on that soft compound tyre, but we might have to wait until Q3 to see that one happening. But we will get a large bulk of drivers coming out on this first opening phase, and a lot of these drivers, brand new, intermediate tyres, Q1, full wet, with a few soft tyres. Fair enough. If they don't get through, it's not going to impact the race too much. If they do get through, they have another set of soft compound tyres to use, just in case it does dry up. So it's a brilliant play from these teams, these engineers. They fought it through. They understand they're in a slightly awkward position. But I do want to just point out as well, the weather forecast for the race isn't looking too great.
Oh, okay. Is that a wet?
So rumor has it it's going to start dry, and then the rain's going to slowly creep in, and then end up with full wet conditions towards the end.
Well, that makes it quite interesting. Obviously, we do have a restart, and I believe, is it dynamic weather? Because I'm not sure, because at one point I've thought it is, but then I've thought it is and it's not, and then when I thought it's not, it is. So I don't actually know what the weather conditions are and how it works for a race, because it seems to change everywhere.
I'll do a little bit of background research for you there.
Thank you, Josh, because I did too many leagues, and too many of them have different rules on weather, and it gets quite muddled up in my head, like the weather does on this game. So while Josh does a bit of investigating, we'll have a look at some of the drivers on circuit now. We can see Thomas Ronhart heading his way up towards turn number 3, and we'll see what he can do in that first sector. A 17.324 there for the RHG driver. His teammate Elvin Busher following in behind, and he also set a decent first sector there. So we'll see what these two can do. A Q3 is expected for both of these drivers, I think, here in this session. So to see them any lower than that top 10 would be a very, very big surprise. And so we'll stay on board with Alfie as he heads down towards turn number 4 before getting back on the pavement on the exit as he heads his way around to turn 5 and then to the double left-handers at turn 6 and 7. And Josh, this middle sector, it's quite a harsh one, isn't it, in the dry,
Yes.
but the wet, your car can just snap out instantly and you can't control it.
Yeah, it can be very, very punishing. I do have a little bit of feedback information I've got from my beautiful quick analytic skills of skim reading. And it is supposed to be dynamic, so we could potentially see this weather change, but we know what the Styrian Alps are like. We know they can be very, very harsh when it comes to weather conditions, as we've got Thomas Ronhart finishing his lap, and Alfie Butcher coming across the line now, putting up a 3/10 gap between the two teammates. Certainly something we could see these Sauber drivers start whittling away at and keep progressing, because they've got the luxury now of getting themselves in a rhythm. If they've added a little bit more fuel to the car, they can potentially go for consecutive laps here. And the more running they do on this surface, the drier that racing line will become, because these intermediate tyres can shift a bucket load of water per 10, 20 meters, let alone over the 2-mile racetrack. It's kicking up so much water off this racing line. We could definitely start seeing these drivers progressively get quicker and quicker as the session go up.
Of course, and we can see a very good start from Ronhart and Barry Burman, sitting first and second and having quite big gaps between each other, and then also quite a big gap into third, which is obviously Max Wiesel ahead of Alfie Butcher in P4. We can see Ishmael Fassi come to the line. Where can he go? Into third place there with a 1:10.355. A few more cars heading through in towards this final sector. I believe Daniel Coyett might be one of them. He'll be heading down. He's on a lap of 49.1 for that first and second sector split. We'll see what he can do when he heads up towards the line. The two RHGs back into the pit lane now before they get themselves onto a new set of tyres. And what can Daniel do? Can he get himself into that top 5? We won't. He'll be quite close, though, with a 1:10.476. That pops him into P8. number 6. And we can see a few more cars coming through as well. Otis Lawrence, purple in that first sector. So we'll see what he can do, of course, when he comes towards the line. And Josh, I expect the track to slowly start to get a little bit better. The rain's still there, but on my screen at least, it does look like it's starting to calm down a bit.
Yeah, there's certainly less cats and dogs being pummeled down on the Red Bull Ring at the moment, and it's certainly something that we're going to have to keep a very tentative eye on. I'm sure the engineers and drivers themselves are all keeping an eye, as we got Otis Lawrence putting in a stonking lap time there of a 109.7. But I'm going to keep my eye on Tycho Hardy here. We know F7R's got brilliant qualifying form, and they've somewhat been able to translate it to race. Not on a consistent basis, but they've always been roughly about there in the top end of the points. So that's going to be certainly something I want to see Tycho Hardy deliver as he swings his way through turn 9, approaching turn 10 now. He's going to be careful of track limits. They are a little less forgiving because it is wet. They're a little bit more generous, and he's going to be able to put himself up into P8. We can expect those lap times to slowly keep being whittled down by each and every driver on this grid, and we could potentially start seeing 109s flat in the next couple of minutes as well.
Of course, and we can see obviously the track getting a little bit better. Otis Lawrence there pulling a full 10th gap to Thomas Ronhart in second place, but we look a little bit further down now to the bottom 5, and at the moment it is Louis Welch in P11, followed by Keegan Lutton in 12th, 13th place for Reese Linton, 14th for Lenny Papinta, and 15th for Dylan Warren, who's just left the session. So hopefully he can get himself back in shortly and doesn't risk losing a place here in Q2, and then putting Keegan Lutton into 14th for the race, which I think will get swapped around. I think people who are qualifying bands will be dropped behind those who haven't. If so, Keegan should drop behind Jack West, I believe. So Jack will start around 15th, 14th place. But we can see the two race clutches coming through in towards the end of that middle sector. Reese Linton a 48.9 in sector 2, decent from the Alpine so far. Then we can see behind Lenny Papinta also working his way through. So we'll keep on board with Reese Linton and Josh as he heads down now in toward turn 9 and 10.
Yeah, you can see the confidence he's got to flick that car in as well. It's absolutely brilliant getting to watch these drivers push it to the absolute limits around this Austrian circuit. But where's he going to be able to put himself up into P4? What about Lenny Papinta? Just about coming through the final corner, barely keeping it within the track limits. He's approaching the line now, and he hops himself up into P11. A little way off his teammate, though. That could be a little cause for concern over in the race clutch camp.
Of course, yeah, that is a big surprise to see Lenny Papinta quite far off the pace. 3/10 nearly separates him and Reese Linton, which is normally, you know, we don't normally see Lenny that far off if we see him anywhere. He's normally ahead of his team, and never mind sitting behind. So a big surprise there indeed for Lenny, but then again, he has got time to go. Again, as Louis Welch pops himself into 3rd there. Brilliant lap with a 110.108, just behind the back of Max Diesel, who's obviously in 2nd place with a 110.106. So got a few more drivers now starting their new laps. Thomas Ronhart heading up towards turn number 3 and already up by a 1/10.5. 1.7 tenths is up by so far. And I don't think that's a surprise to see Thomas Ronhart up by so much, because it's like he lives in the wet conditions, doesn't he? Like when he's in the wet conditions, he just flies. Nothing can stop him.
I mean, there's a reason why he started to adopt the name Goathar, and it's not just because of his staggering pace in the dry. He's also got that transferable skill to be able to nail it on a greasy, unfriendly circuit, which this circuit can certainly kick up a bit of grease, can't it? Because it's not a typical racetrack. It's quite often used for many different events here and there. I believe I did a little bit of research earlier, and apparently they're having a food festival at the circuit this weekend coming up, which is certainly interesting. Not sure it'd be my personal choice for a venue if I got to choose, but certainly something to keep in mind. Of course, you've got different types of cars going around here as well. The GT3s, which can have a couple problems with their engines. It's not unheard of for them to have a couple of oil leaks here and there. And then you've also got the different tyre compounds, different brand manufacturers as well, where the tyres just degrade in different ways. But we see Thomas Ronhart once again hopping up and continuing that little bit of a streak he's got. So far, it seems like every time he's been out on track, he's been setting the fastest lap, and it's absolutely brilliant to see. But the real question is, how close has Alfie Butcher got? It might be a little bit too close for Ronhart's comfort, as we've got Ishmael Fassi once again, just before that time, really starting to show this track evolution and making it certainly evident. And we've also got Kian Gordendorp here, who went for an outlap, but has just decided to dive it back into the pits.
Yeah, well, if you look at the screen, Josh, I can see there's no rain at all on the circuit. Nothing. Oh, well, there isn't any falling down at least. There is a wet track, of course, but there's no rain falling down, which means soft tyres should be starting to loom around very shortly, maybe. Well, we've got 5 minutes left, so I think we will see a couple of softs make an appearance towards the end. And Well, that could throw an even bigger curveball into Q2, meaning then no one is really safe on any lap time they've got. So if you're first, doesn't mean much, because everyone else will gain under 3 seconds once the soft tyres come out onto track. We can see Togo Hardy has already swapped over to a set of the soft, and no one else really jumping over onto those new tyres just yet. Everyone else on brand new intermediate tyres in the pit lane. So we'll see who is first to bounce and who will be first to bounce on the soft tyres. And we can see now a couple more cars just being wheeled back in towards the pit lane. We can see the Williams crew. Are they going to be welcoming in a car? Yes, they are. That'll be Keane Godendorp, I believe, or Ishmael Fassi. Obviously heading back in now. And, well, Josh, this could be a very interesting finale to Q2. And, well, anyone could be out.
Yeah, we've just got this little bit of a waiting game now, don't we? It's more of a game of chicken, seeing who's going to take the first lap out. But of course, if they do end up taking the first lap out on the soft compound tire, they're just going to have that little bit more time to get around the track and maybe even do 2 installation laps. Again, it can be quite costly around a circuit like Austria, where it can be very aggressive on a set of tires, especially if they're not up to temperature, which the drivers will struggle with given the damp conditions.
Indeed, yeah. I think it'll be a little bit of a lot of adjusting to do, won't it? Obviously, going from the wet conditions to then being able to actually put your foot down on the exit of a corner and thinking, oh, this is, it feels weird. And some drivers might not have that full confidence because they haven't been used to driving in those conditions for the past, session and a half. So some drivers tend to struggle when we go from that wet to dry phase. Others can get on with it quite nicely, like Sir Thomas Ronhart, but then others do tend to struggle. And I've noticed there, Barry Borman did select a set of soft, but selected back to a set of intermediate tyres. So I'm not sure if he's not that faithful in the soft tyres, but I do notice Keane Godendorp has switched himself over to a set of the soft, and the drivers seeming to be a little bit, still confused and not sure what to do in this scenario. Yes. I'd also be quite unsure what to do, but I'd be unsure what to do even if it was fully dry, because I'm not a racer, I'm a commentator. That's why me and Josh sit here yapping along, because we would not be very useful on a track. Nikita Mazepin would be compared to Lewis Hamilton in terms of us two, wouldn't he?
yes. I feel like he would be considered, amongst the very, very greatest to ever touch the circuit in comparison to us. But this is going to be the prime time where the drivers are able to use their little technical devices in their little pit garage and have the monitor up to select the tyre compounds, and they can select between the soft tyre and intermediate tyre to be able to get an accurate delta time to which one is going to be quicker. So it wouldn't surprise me if that could be the reason why we see a lot of these drivers swapping from the soft to the intermediate, back to the soft, and then back to the intermediate, just making sure they're trying to pick the perfect tyre for this opportunity. But I could already see the SRC garage is looking to send out one of their Aston Martins.
Well, I've been told by someone that one of the drivers here on this grid are on a full wet setup. Not going to disclose who, but someone on here could be a bit, could be a bit of a disadvantage to that factor, and you might be able to see who it is once the lap times come through on the, when the track starts to dry up. But it should be drying out for the end of Q3, hence why everyone is out on a set of the soft tyres, bar Otis Lawrence, who's still on a set of intermediate tyres, so hopefully he will switch to a set of softs and go out to track. But no intermediates for Otis Lawrence. Now that, a little bit confusing there. Why would he go onto a set of inters when the track is drying? And we know in this game, Josh, it dries in literally 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, but you've got to have faith in Veloce here, right? They're a huge org, professional team. They understand exactly what's happening at this moment in time. Perhaps Otis might have took it onto his own whim to decide to go on an intermediate tyre, thinking it might still not be dry enough for his personal liking. Certainly something we could potentially see. Maybe going to his benefit here, but again, you would have to say, with the other 13 drivers remaining in the session, it would be a very, very tough call to consider the other 13 drivers, their individual engineers, their own personal decision-making are all incorrect and Otis Lawrence is right.
That could be the case.
Yeah, it could be. But then on the other hand, you're comparing, a relatively young, still quite experienced, but still a young driver here in Otis Lawrence to the likes of Max Wiesel, who's got a lot more experience in these sort of situations. So perhaps it could be something interesting here. We're going to see Otis getting boxed in here by the soft tyre runners there, which probably won't help him, but I believe he's going to be trying to scurry along with his lap time as soon as he possibly can. As Louis Welsh picks up a 5-place grid penalty for illegal blocking, but that won't matter too much. It's a mandatory lobby restart anyway. So you can ignore those 5-place grid penalties. It doesn't matter, but we certainly do have a bit of a Tesco car park forming up here in Sector 3.
We do. I'm on board here with Max Wiesel, and all the cars are so close together. People are going to end up missing the flag at this rate. We can see Max looking to get on with it, but the car ahead, being a Ferrari, didn't want to get on with it too quickly. But they all flying out to the final corners, and hopefully everyone makes it to the line. It's going to be close there for one of the Alpines, and he does just make it across there to set a lap, and DRS has just been enabled, so all those that started their laps just are a bit of a disadvantage because the DRS wasn't enabled when they went in towards that detection zone.
Yes, absolutely, and it's going to be something that Otis Lawrence might end up ruining here. That is the key indication to say the soft tyres are going to be the quicker. The slick tyres are going to be more prominent than the intermediates or wet tyres. So Otis Lawrence is faced with a very tough decision here. He's got a very big task ahead of him, trying to get these intermediate compounds all the way to the end of the lap without overcooking them, while keeping it in track limits and pushing this car to the extremity to get himself up into Q3. It's going to be a tall task, but we know what Otis Lawrence is capable of.
Of course, we'll see what Otis can do. I'm on board with Louis Welch as he also heads down in towards turn 9 and turn 10. What can Otis do? Can he get himself any higher than 5th on the grid at these current points? To the line, goes up to the top with a 108.27, and Louis Welch there at 108.9. So Otis looking quicker on these tyres. This could actually be a very good play for Otis Lawrence. So you can see many lap times coming through. Thomas Ronhaar could be able to qualify, and Thomas Ronhaar's out. Ronhaar's out to qualify along with both the F7Rs. Here in Q2, I'm trying to see who else went out as well, but it was, well, I said he might be wrong, but it seemed Otis was right being on those intermediate tyres. We can see who went out, and it was Tygo Hardy and Daniel Coyle, Louis Welch and Thomas Ronhaar, of course, to go out, and that is a very big surprise there in Q2. And well, for the first time this season, Josh, both of the Ferraris getting through to Q3, and Otis, yeah, he did get P4, but at the end it was Riccardo Benzoni that topped the session.
Yeah, and it's certainly a little bit of a shocker. I'm quite gobsmacked, to be honest, that Thomas Ronhaar's ended up falling out there. It did look like he picked up an invalidation on his lap time, which is something that we will have to keep in mind throughout the rest of this Q3 session. But so far, so good for the rest of the drivers. And Otis Lawrence having, the audacity to call everyone else's bluff, understand what he believes is going to go quicker, and stick to his guns and make it work as well. It's fantastic there from the young Welshman.
Indeed, there. Brilliant from Otis to try something a bit different and for it, of course, to work in his favour. But we get started for Q3 and now we get to see what is the weather here on track. And it's overcast,
it's dry.
But it's dry, which means the track will, it will work its way in as the laps get under. It won't be, the 102s at the start of the session. Of course, it will be a little bit slower. So we could see, of course, yet again, a bit of a dramatic ending with the track still getting towards that optimum conditions. But we've got a very interesting top 10 here, and I'd say, big congrats to Riccardo Benzoni getting himself through towards Q3, and his teammate Louis Welch, unfortunately, not making it through. So a big surprise there for SRC to not see Louis Welch in towards Q3, considering his lap time wasn't the worst when he initially crossed the line. Obviously, many people did find those key improvements, and well, we said at first, Thomas Ronhaar's want to look for pole. It seems he's been cursed once again by the commentators, and he's going to be starting no higher than 14th. Alfie Butcher, his teammate, has now got to do all the work for RHG to get them at least into that top 3. But a very competitive one, isn't it here, Josh? We've got Ishmael, T and Dylan, Barry, Otis, Max. It's such a competitive Q3. You can't call who will take pole until you see that lap time come through.
Absolutely, and, with F7R as well, falling out of contention with Q3 here, you're looking at the opportunity that Race Clutch have got themselves presented towards them. Currently P3 in the standings, 28 points back off of P2. This could be their opportunity to really try and close up, overtake F7R, and then keep pushing forward onto Williams here. But of course, we do have to mention Williams have got both drivers through as well as Scuderia Ferrari. So it's going to be certainly something we're going to have to keep an eye out for the remainder of this session. But I feel like, the likes of Max Wiesel, Riccardo Benzoni, Otis Lawrence, and also Alfie Butcher can certainly throw a couple spanners in their plans for the top 3 teams getting through into qualifying here. So don't count them out just yet.
Of course, and the first one to start a lap will be Ishmael Fascino, heading up towards turn 1, and Ishmael is a driver that, he's frighteningly quick when he's got the pace under. If he's not on the pace, he's still decent. But when he has got that practice in, when he's got that perfect lap, he's absolutely flying. So I think he's one we should be looking and keeping an eye on here for pole position tonight. His first sector, we'll see what it is. It's a 16.120 to open up his lap, and we'll see what he can do as the lap gets underway. Sector 2 is where you tend to gain the most time, as that turn 4 through towards turn 8, is really where you can throw the car and try and get as much time as you can extracted out of that lap. We can can see him heading now down into turn 4 late on the brakes, getting back early on the pair. We're riding wide on that exit and using all the track that he can in that Williams. And so far, Josh, this is looking like a decent lap for him to open up the session here.
Yeah, he's certainly pushing this poor little Williams car to the next level, isn't he? You can tell he's gone for slightly lower wings. It's very unfriendly coming out of the corners, but you can just see the amount of pace he's got. This is someone who's certainly not got a wet setup on. I can almost guarantee that because of the way he's flying around the circuit. And the way he's got the confidence to flip the car in as well, it mesmerises me every single time we see these drivers. And Ismail Fassi starts off the session with 103.1. Certainly not bad at all, but let's keep an eye on the drivers behind.
Indeed, we can see Barry Burman come through. To the top goes Barry, the 2.9. Max Wiesel to line a 3.4. That's not the best lap indeed from Max Wiesel. So we'll see if he can find some key improvements. But a brilliant lap indeed from Barry Burman to put himself the first driver into the 102s. We can see a few more cars coming through. Reese Linton looking to be entering back into the pit lane. We've got Lenny Pinter coming through. Cian Gondorp goes into fourth as Lenny gets onto the provisional front row. Alfie Butcher invalidating at turn 9, and that's really going to ruin his lap. What would have been for Alfie? It would have been a 102.931, would have put him onto provisional pole. Big shame for RHG as Riccardo Benzoni goes into 6th there with a 103.759, quite far off the pace. But obviously some drivers might be a little bit further off at this part, this first part of quality, just wanting to get a banker lap before going all push on the final run.
Absolutely. I mean, we know Austria is a short circuit, so if the drivers are quick enough, they might be able to pedal themselves back to the garage and potentially look to try and get free runs, but it'll be a very tight squeeze to do so. And certainly the drivers which have been able to save a set of soft compound tyres, maybe not necessarily using them in Q1. Looking at Race Clutch here, they could find themselves in a very good window to be able to use all their soft compound tyres during this session to really try and maximise the effect and try and keep putting that fresh rubber down on the circuit. As you mentioned, because it's rained, it washes away a lot of the rubber on the circuit. It washes away a lot of the grip. So it'll certainly be something we're going to have to keep an eye out for because this track evolution is going to be rampant for the remainder of this session.
Of course, and I think we can definitely see the lap times come down as the session gets along. We can see a little bit more sun popping through the clouds here on the circuit, and that's when we'll get to see, more lap times come through. And we can see now Otis Lawrence on an 8 lap. Dylan Warren has begun a lap now. He's heading down towards turn number 1 as he throws his car in, gets back on the power nice and early on the exit as he heads his way through up towards turn 3. Cheeky little slipstream there from the back of the Alpine as he heads up to this braking zone, braking around that 100 metre border. 15.9 for Dylan Warren there. Very nice first sector indeed, about a 10th quicker than what Ismail Fassi did in that first sector. So good signs here from the Ferrari as he heads his way down towards turn 4, and Barry still on that provisional pole. This is also a perfect chance here, Josh, for Ferrari to try and get themselves a little bit higher up in the standings. Sitting in P5, considering last season they dominated and won by 100 points, it's not really that ideal of a scenario for them, is it?
No, absolutely isn't. But what a way to end up finishing the break by having their best qualifying performance by getting both drivers through into Q3. It's certainly something we'll be looking to add on after the break and continue building on. But Dylan Warren, you've got to say, this man's return to the Ferrari outfit has been certainly something to keep an eye out for as he invalidates his lap time going through turn 9 there. But he does have enough time to go for another lap, and it would have been a 103.2 anyway. So he would have been looking to split the Williams duo there in P3 and P4. But he does have enough time to just get back around to the pits, put a new set of softs on, and go for another lap. And he might be running a little bit out of order here as well. So that could be something to keep an eye on, just in case he ends up getting picked up by any of these drivers, during their laps, or maybe when he's on a lap and the drivers are coming in, or maybe even going out for a last lap.
Yes.
You never know at the end of the day, do you? Because Austria is one of those circuits you can kind of just do whatever you want run plan wise. It's just about getting the laps on the board and building on it because it's such a flowing circuit. So that's certainly going to be something where we might have to take a look at the likes of Alfie Butcher and Dylan Warren, who ended up picking up an invalidation and could potentially have maybe lost a little bit of confidence here and there.
Well, indeed, he's on a 47.2 in that middle sector, which I don't think is enough for a lap. I'm not quite sure on my sector times here around the Austrian circuit, so we'll see him head back in towards the pits. Obviously, he hasn't got enough fuel to do 2 runs on those soft, and also probably hasn't got the tyre wear, the tyre degradation, to get himself 2 runs out of that set of tyre. But we can see Reese Linton now heading down in towards turn number 4. He's on a lap now, doing a decent job so far, purpling the first sector on my screen. So we'll see what he can do in this middle sector and in the third sector. He hasn't got a lap time just yet, so nothing to go off for Reese Linton, but his teammate Lenny Pinter sitting in second. So, Race Coach have got a decent setup underneath them, especially with Lenny Pinter, a 43.9 for Reese in that second set. So what's it looking like for Reese here, Josh?
It's looking very strong indeed, looking at the sector times, and also looking at the way he's been dancing that car around. It's not, as aggressive as some of the other cars over the curbs. So you could potentially even think that maybe that's not dialed in for qualifying, and that could be a dialed in race setup, which they've been able to work on. And, dare I say, it might as well have been a qualifying setup, because he's jumped right up to the top of the leaderboard there. Managing to gap Barry Burman there by just over a tenth of a second. But of course, this track evolution is going to play a key part. With 4 minutes and 20 seconds remaining of this session, I'm sure we can expect to see a couple more of these drivers improve on their laps. An example of that could be Ishmael Fassi here.
Indeed,
yeah. No, I believe he might have abandoned this lap already. Yeah.
Well, he abandoned it at turn 10. He made a mistake going into the final corner, and then obviously couldn't set his lap, couldn't get back into the pits because he was already past the pit entry line. So big shame indeed for many drivers, as many of them made mistakes in that third sector. Alfie Butcher to the top two there, a 102.894, brilliant lap from the young gun in the RHG. Team will see if he can. I don't think he can set another lap. I don't think he can get back around in time, so that could be it here for Alfie Butcher, and we'll see if he can keep that top two. But it could be quite unlikely, because many improvements could be across the board from many of the drivers here in this grid. We saw Max Fiesel making an invalidation on his run along with Ishmael Fassi, hence why they've gone back around again and now heading back into the pits. Barry Burman and Lenny Pinto also did the same on their runs, and then luckily they could bail out before they hit that start-finish line. So we'll see now. Many more drivers head back out onto circuit here, Josh, and as much as I want to know who you think will get pole, I want to know in the chat, guys, who do you think will take pole position? Because currently it's Reese Linton, ahead of Alfie Butcher, and then there's a big, nearly a tenth separating Alfie and Barry. So quite some big gaps throughout the field. But obviously we want to know who you think will take pole position.
Oh, I'm not sure. Right, okay. If I'm going to think about this logically, F7R would have been my favourites, but neither of them made it through. So, the next step I would say after that would be one of the Ferrari boys. Barry looks like he's got pace. We know what Dylan's capable of. But after last week, I feel like I'm going to have to go Barry.
That's fair. I think he's shown a good, a decent Q3. He did a decent job back in France, got second on the grid for that race, so I think he's a fair shake. But I'm going to go with Alfie Butcher. I think if he can get out again, of course, which I think he will do. He's shown a very good job at the start of Q3, getting himself that 102.8. So we'll see what he can do. But yet again, any of them here could take pole. And I can read in the chat there on YouTube. Bradley Holdham says Jack West for sure. Well, yes. To anyone that didn't know, Jack retired a little bit too early and ended up being out in Q1 in P17. So, yes, a big shame. I did see a tweet on Twitter as well. PSGL had a bit of a dig at Jack West by mentioning the fact and then putting a clapping emoji at the end. So, indeed, it was quite an entertaining moment there for Jack West, and one he'll be, I'd say at this point, probably more laughing about rather than annoyed.
Yeah, certainly would be one to save his blushes for another day. It's not the end of the world, of course. Points are made in the race, and we know what Jack West can be capable of. If he ends up finding a beautiful bit of track at the start of the race, he can certainly make up a couple bold positions heading up into turn 3, especially. I'm going to predict that to be one of the hot spots for this race, and certainly something we're going to have to keep an eye out. But I do just want to point out, Alfie Butcher's already come out for his outlap here, and it looks like he'll be able to reach up to the back of his pack and get enough time to set another lap, and he'll be probably in one of the most preferential places on this grid, towards the back of the field, making sure he's got that best track set for him for when he goes for his flying lap.
And Dylan Warren there, we could see, went on a lap, but let off in the middle sector, so he'll be looking to go again. He's burnt a bit of fuel. This could be brilliant here for Dylan Warren. Maybe a bit of a masterclass play from the Ferrari team to let him go for half a lap, burn some fuel, get himself prepared, sit in that train and go again. Dylan Warren could be on for a very good run here in qualifying, depending what he can do in this final lap. But the first one to head underway will be Cian Godendorp, heading up towards turn 1 here, Josh. And Williams, they've been very good in qualifying this season so far. And I think with Cian and Ishmael, that yet again is a very good qualifying team and also a very good race team. So these two, I could see both Williams in the top 5 here.
Absolutely. Realistically, I can see almost any of these drivers reaching into a top 5. I can see, realistically, all these drivers trying to battle it out for pole position, and of course that's what they're here to do. But we know what Cian's like. We know he's got pace. We know he's a phenomenal young developing talent as well, and he's only going to get quicker the more he races under the Williams badge. And you can already see just the amount of prowess he's got when it comes to using this car, using the curbs as well. He knows exactly where to place the car, how to direct it to minimize the amount of bouncing he gets over the curves to save himself that little bit of extra time. Brilliant sector 2 there from Kian. Could be potentially a favourite here to nab the pole position as he flicks it into turn 9. He's just got to be a little wary about track limits. He approaches turn 10 there, abundance of pace into the apex. He's got to come across the line now and only find a slight improvement and not even jumping up into P6. That's very interesting. But of course, we've got Otis Lawrence now coming across, jumps himself up into P4, and now it's going to be rapid fire throughout the rest of his grid, isn't it? We've got Reese Linton extending his gap. Barry Boromand also topping himself up there into P2. Ricardo Benzoni invalidated his lap, but we do have Dylan Warren coming across the line now, hopping up into P5. We've got the other half of the race clutch team of Lenny Papinta. Then, of course, we've got Max hopping into P8. Ooh. Again, there's a lot of hopping here, there, and everywhere. And, well, that was a rapid fire there, wasn't it?
Well, Alfie, he was on for the pole position lap and he invalidated at turn 10.
Yes.
Big shame there for Alfie. He was going to look to take pole, but unfortunately it won't be him. It will be Reese Linton for Race Clutch on pole position here for the Austrian Grand Prix, ahead of Barry Burman, second time in 2 races, finishing in second in qualifying, ahead, of course, of Alfie Butcher, and just 88 thousandths separating the top 3 here in qualifying. Then Ishmael Fassi will be in 4th, and Otis Lawrence in the top 5, ahead of Dylan Warren in P6, Lenny Papinta in 7th, Max Wiesel in P8, Keane Goldendup in 9th, and Ricardo Benzoni rounding out the top 10 here in qualifying. An SRC in the top 10, definitely something they would need going through in towards this round after, I'd say, not the best race back in France. A top 10 starts here in Austria could definitely earn them some very well-deserved points. But Williams, 4th and 9th, it's not the best, but it's not the worst.
Yeah, it's certainly not. You know, with the likes of Ferrari and Race Clutch having a solid performance there, we could potentially start seeing that gap up towards the top between Williams and F7R, and then that mid-pack of Race Clutch, SRC, and Scuderia Ferrari sort of merging into one by the end of this race. It's certainly going to be something we're going to have to keep an eye out for, as we've got all the drivers now getting ready for this lobby restart, which is, you know, it's standard, it's necessary. Make sure we get the smoothest transition possible. So hopefully there'll be a couple less prominent features, but again, certainly interesting. SRC showing they've got the pace once again, and it's certainly going to be something they're going to be looking to build on throughout the course of this race. Having Louis Welsh out of Q2, it's unfortunate, but it gives them somewhere to work towards, looking forward to the race.
Of course, and I think another thing to talk about is definitely F7R, 11th and 12th, going through in towards the Austrian Grand Prix. That, you know, they're championship contenders. They can't afford to be having a double Q2 knockout, so they're going to have to think of something at the back. They're going to have to try something new, which Togo Hardy did last week in France. It did work off. He was staying in P17, did a completely different strategy, ended on the soft tyres, and did get himself into the top 6 in the end. So very good strategy indeed from F7R last time around. But Josh, I believe it's time to have a little bit of a word from our sponsors over at GT Omega and Sim Racing Centre. And welcome back, everybody. We are back from our ad breaks, obviously. Yet again, thanks to our sponsors, GT Omega and Sim Racing Centre. And Josh, first of all, we'll talk about GT Omega. You know, they have some of the best chairs. And I believe they also have some new chairs, don't they? Which is it bucket seats, which I've heard are quite good. And they've obviously got their new gaming chairs as well. You know.
Yes, this bad boy. I'm telling you, I almost fall asleep in it every single night instead of a bed behind me. I just lean back in it. It's got a brilliant feature. I'm sure you would have all seen it from back in the day of PewDiePie when he used to chuck his chair back. GT Omega is no different. They love to keep in trends, and you can basically fully recline it, so it's as comfortable as a bed. To be quite honest, it's a bit concerning how comfortable it is. I'm not sure how they've done it, but whatever they've done to it, it's fantastic to sit in.
of course, and along with having your GT Omega rig or seats, whatever you choose to
Yeah.
play the F1 game with, you can also use some SRC setups.
Absolutely. Jan Geffen and the team over there have worked so hard to be able to deliver the fantastic F123 setups that they've got currently in store, as well as having an order to now pre-order the F124 setups for day of release as well. They'll have the engineering team working in the background. They've got access to the closed beta, and they'll be working relentlessly, getting those setups out to you guys as soon as possible. So it'll certainly be something to keep an eye on, because, of course, I mentioned this story before, but Rehards decided just to chuck on the SRC setup in esports, just gave it a little go for the qualifying runs we did here for E-Series around Suzuka, and he came out with a joint quickest lap time.
Indeed. The SRC setups are great. I've used them multiple times on this game, and I think without them, I'd be a lot slower than I am now. I'm not very good, but with the SRC setups, I think I'll be quite further off of the pace. But hopefully, we can get our way into the session shortly. We've got 36 laps, dynamic weather, of course, which throws another curveball in towards this race. And we obviously got the five drivers at the back with qualifying. Mans being Turner O'Shea, the two NVRs, and of course the two TESs, which they need to get a good race on there today. Especially those two teams, MVR and TES. They're quite far back in the standings. 59 points for Novus, 45 for Thomas Zhang. It's nowhere near what I think they can do. I think they've got drivers that have got brilliant pace, but they're just not getting it right on race day. Whether that's pressure, maybe they're not getting the right setups. Use SRC. Maybe they're not getting the the right look in the races. They need to try and figure out what the issues are. Otherwise, it's not going to get any better, and it just gets more painful, doesn't it? Week on week. There's 11 races, a lot longer than last season. The last thing you want is every week coming into this saying, "Oh, we're last," or "We're near the back."
Yeah.
You don't want to be having that mindset, do you?
No, it's demoralizing, and even to an extent, it might be humiliating. I know when I used to do a bit of endurance racing, I first started out towards the back of the field, and out of 50 cars, and you finish in like 47th. It's not a great feeling at the end of the day, and I'm sure they're sort of experiencing the same feeling during E-Series as well. But it'll be about how they're able to sort of adapt to whatever's going wrong behind the scenes there, trying to shift it over to make it work in a more consistent way, because it's evident they've got pace. We saw that in the qualifiers. We see it in the qualifying sessions, but when it comes to the race, they really tend to struggle. So I feel like this could be a very good opportunity for them to learn and start progressing more towards that race side, be able to try and get the results they desperately want as well. I feel like we should also mention not an actual qualifying ban, but Jack West as well. Unfortunate in the qualifying, I'm interested to see what he's going to be able to do. As I mentioned, he's got some very bold overtakes in him. We've seen a couple here before. He's certainly got away with trying to make moves, which shouldn't necessarily work. Just come out of nowhere and pop himself through. It'll be certainly interesting watching him try and climb through the field. Also, with likes Tony Rocher as well, who is a very stern fighter. Got the pleasure of casting him in a regular season here at PSGL in F3, and he does not like letting positions go in the slightest. He will defend any position to the absolute end of a race. He's more than happy to do so. He doesn't mind. He just wants to race, and it's a brilliant attitude to have. And I feel like a lot of these drivers on the grid share a very similar mentality, so it should create some brilliant racing here.
Indeed, but unfortunately for Tony, he's not going to defend much because he's staying in P16. So he's going to focus more on the attacking stage of this race to get himself some higher positions, of course, in the Grand Prix. Maybe that means trying a bit of a different strategy, maybe go for a bit of an undercut, or maybe going for a heavy overcut to then have some instant, brilliant pace towards the end of the race. And that's what these teams lower down have to think about. They've got to try something new. They can't just follow those ahead, because if you follow them, you'll just stay behind them unless you've got, electric pace. So they've got to start thinking of maybe pitting early, pitting later, maybe trying a different strategy in terms of what tyres they use going in towards this race. So I could see a couple try and gamble for the softs. It might not work, but I could see them gambling for it. Maybe those further back, just try and get some, more positions, and then they can try and fit it with that DRS train and kind of, try and worm their way in and then just pit when the others do, and hopefully it can work for them. But this is going to be an interesting race, isn't it, Josh? And I can't wait to get underway, because Austria, it always delivers racing. No matter what platform, no matter what game and what cars, it always delivers.
It's always a banger in the Styrian Alps, and I, for one, cannot wait to get involved in this one as well. Of course, 36 laps might seem like quite a long race, but you've got to consider these laps are going to be like 1 minute 4s, 1 minute 6s at a consistent level. There is a high percentage of safety car, though. That is something we have noted during the time here at PSGL, Austria has got one of the highest rates for bringing out a safety car. There is an awful lot of chance for contact as well, given the nature of some of these corners, and especially the pit entry as well. It's not often talked about much on the sim racing side, but it is equally as risky to stay and make sure you keep that inside apex, because all it takes at the end of the day is a driver to be flying through, already racing side by side with someone, and next thing you know, you're making contact, and when one of you is just trying to dive in the pits, there's a lot to be won, and there is an awful lot to be lost here as well. So we're going to have to certainly keep an eye out for that one.
There is indeed. And with the angle we get here in the pit lane on this circuit, we can see the cars on the grid. And obviously we'll see them in more view once we get started. And I know for a fact that my curses don't always end well for drivers. So Josh, you're going to take the start because I want to make sure they can all make it through turn 1 correctly. But one thing I just want to ask quickly before we get underway is, who, guys, do you think will win? Because there's a big grid, there's lots of people in displaced positions. It's hard. You've got to pick a name out of a hat, haven't you, here?
Yes, absolutely. I'll tell you what, I'll cover my eyes and point at the team lineup. Let's go there. Right, okay, I've pointed at Reese Linton. I promise I covered my eyes, I promise. I'm going Reese Linton, then.
It's not a bad guess. I'm going to go with, you know what, I'll go with Alfie Butcher.
Okay, right. Well, there are 2 drivers who aren't going to win because we've cursed them, knowing how we work here, Nathan, isn't it? I mean, when's the last time we got through a race and didn't curse a driver?
Never.
Yeah, I genuinely don't think there's been a race we've broadcast together and haven't ended up resulting in mentioning someone doing well, having a good run of form, and then flopping it. But it's nice to see a couple of predictions already coming out from chat as well. We got Book there with Butcher, with a little cup sign there as well. Is it a cup around Austria they win, or is it a shield?
Shield, isn't it? Captain America's shield.
I think so. But anyway, we have got 5 red lights getting switched on at this very moment. We've got the 5 lights. They're up and they're away. Beautiful start there from Reese Linton and Barry Burman, having an equally good start, already making a slight little challenge to the inside. But Alfie Butcher looking to try and send it around the outside, but he's had to back off there slightly. And Reese Linton's got a bit too deep into turn 1. That'll give Barry a brilliant opportunity to take the inside line, and we could be looking at going 3 wide already here, heading up into turn 3. Alfie Butcher on the outside sweeps his way around Reese Linton, and now he's trying to do the same thing to Barry Burman, and he's got to get the traction by taking that slightly higher exit. Brilliant move there from Alfie Butcher, getting himself into the lead of this race and into a very commanding position right off the start. And for once, I feel like we managed to get through turn 1 without any instances, but of course, we've got Barry Burman and Reese Linton still fighting tooth and nail. Ishmael Fassi, notice Lawrence having a little bit of contact there as well. There's a lot breaking out over this field at the minute, Richie.
Indeed, and we can see there Barry back ahead of Reese Linton. Reese went for a move, but couldn't quite get it done on the exit at the corner. Ishmael Fassi, massive slide heading out of turn 4. I thought he was going to spin the car, but luckily he got it all nice and tidy. And we can see on the grid it's all hard, apart from Jack, Modesto, Nico and Tony. So all those taking the medium tyres to try something a little bit different here in this race. But they're all flying through turn 10, back up towards turn number 1, and we'll see what moves can be made in towards that third corner. On board here with Ishmael Fassi as he heads in towards that first corner, pushing Otis Lawrence through as they head up towards turn 3. And we'll see who's got the better straight line speed, who can make moves with that straight line advantage. We can see Reese looking to gain in, Otis Lawrence looking to gain in here on the back of the Alpine. They go 3 wide into turn 3. Outside for Otis, as that's going to be Reese come to the inside of Barry. Barry's got a better exit as they head down towards turn 4, and still Alfie Butcher can kind of live on with his life and luckily not worry about all those battling behind.
Yeah, but certainly something we're going to have to keep an eye on is Otis Lawrence here, looking to get a move on the inside of Reese Linton, very late on the brakes, and he's able to snatch the apex away from a race clutch driver, making himself up into a potential podium position here. But of course, he's got Barry Burman ahead of him. We know Otis can be very, very quick at the start of stints, but we can quite often see mistakes slowly start to creep in when he's put under pressure, and that's certainly something Reese Linton would have accounted for and will be slowly starting to prep as well. We should also mention Tiger Hardy getting off to a brilliant start, finding himself up into P9. Kieran Gordondop falling down the order slightly into P10 here, so he's got a little bit of work to be cut out. But we should mention majority of drivers going onto that hard compound tyre. It'll be very, very interesting to see the likes of Jack West, Nico Benz, Modesto Mena, and Tony Rochelle on the medium tyre, and how much more pace they're going to be able to extract during this opening stint.
Of course, well, I'm on board now with Jack West as he heads up towards turn number 3. We can see the 2 SRCs and the Aston Martins just ahead of Jack as he goes for a move up the inside of Louis Welch, gets that inside move complete, goes for the 2 and then gets Ricardo as well as Keaton into P13. That drops Louis down to P15, so he must have had contact with someone somewhere along the circuit. We can see Ishmael Fassi looking to close in to make a move, and this one gets wing damage. He hits the back of Otis, and there's a big collision as Barry Burman's round. Oh dearie me, I'm not sure what happened there, but there's a big gap to the rest of the field. Look at them all flying through, Josh. 3-4-1 into turn 6.
That is ridiculous. How can they even consider going that wide there? Tycho Hardy's managed to climb himself up into P6. What on earth has happened? I cannot believe the amount of luck F7R have managed to trip themselves into at this point. It's very, very fortunate. But at the end of the day, they're going to be taking this with both hands as Ishmael Fassi dives into the pit lane, presumably with a bit of wing damage. But of course, we've got Alfie Butcher now storming away in the lead with Max Wiesel behind. We know another Max earlier today had a brilliant run in the qualifying. Max Wiesel's looking to try and match that counterpart over in the real life F1 and try and close up that gap to Alfie Butcher. But with a 3-second lead and the pressure of Otis Lawrence, Dylan Warren, Tycho Hardy behind him, he's got his work cut out for him as we see Otis Lawrence making a brilliant move, heading up into turn 3, using that DRS, using a bit of battery, getting that move sorted as we see Jack West also sliding up the inside of Kean Gordondorf. As mentioned, Jack West, very opportunistic with these overtakes, and he's certainly showing it right now.
Of course, and well, I didn't quite see what happened at turn 4 because I caught it a little bit too late with Ishmael Fassi, and obviously everything unfolded just before. But it'll be now Tiger Hardy up into P5, Max Wiesel up into P3. Brilliant indeed from Max, of course. Then further back we can see Barry arguing still with Keane and also Riccardo Benzoni ahead of Barry Burman. Has Barry got some damage on the Ferrari? Because you can see him looking to back off a little bit there from Riccardo Benzoni. We can see closing in behind is Daniel Kaya looking to get himself in towards that top 10. And then we can see further back, obviously, Ishmael Fassi onto a set of softs and Reece Linton onto a set of the medium tyres. Nico Benz into the pit lane there, off of his medium tyres as he got damage. He speeds into the pits. He went way too fast into the pit lane there. It looked like he wasn't even going to try stopping the car in towards the pits. Big shame, of course, for MBR to have one of their quickest drivers now in the pits. Obviously, with it seems some sort of damage, and also with a 5-second penalty is Barry back ahead of Daniel now. They fight in towards turn 3. Barry not sure kind of where to go there. As you can see, Daniel back up the inside, gets a better exit here than the Ferrari. Surely here, Barry's got some damage.
Surely, the next car behind him is the beast himself, Thomas Ronhaar. Certainly going to be looking to try and make an opportunistic move. If he smells blood in the water, you know he's going to be looking to try and make a move any which way possible. But certainly Barry Burman doesn't look like he's on his traditional pace, does he? He's certainly struggling with that car. At this point, I'm almost convinced he's picked up damage from that incident, which happened up towards the front of the field. It's very unfortunate as well because we know the potential he's got, and he needs to start delivering that potential on a consistent basis. But again, it's no fault of his own getting caught up in these incidents, and he's just having to hold on now for P11. But when you've got the likes of Thomas Ronhaar, Keaton Lutt, and Louis Welsh behind you, it's going to be a very, very tough task to manage. But at the minute, he seems to be doing well enough to keep Thomas Ronhaar behind. But is this all just going to be part of Ronhaar's plan to try and take undoubtedly the lead of a race? Because we know how he works. He'll find himself in P11, cruising along, and the next thing you know, he's battling for the lead out of nowhere.
Indeed, a late move there by Lenny Pepin to fight with Jack West in towards turn 3. The McLaren nearly hitting the back of the Alpine in towards that uphill corner. We can see Jack West though on the outside this time around, looking for a move in towards turn 4. Sticks it to the outside on the medium tyres, of course, ahead of Lenny. Lenny's going to push him wide. They have a bit of contact coming through in towards turn 5, and still Lenny Pepinta keeps that move ahead of Jack West. Further down we can see the two TES cars swapping around, being Nelson and Modesto. Obviously they're fighting with Louis Welch, it seems, for P14 in this race. A decent upwards move for the TES team due to those people getting those damages and also those penalties a little bit further behind. But remember, TES do serve a 5-second penalty for one of their drivers due to having 3 qualifying bans rather than 2. So a big shame indeed for the team to have that, and I believe he is also the best finishing driver which gets the 5-second penalty, so that's even worse for the team as Tony Richet into the pits. So we'll see, has he got any damage on that car, which would be a big shame, wouldn't it, to have 4 or 5 drivers get involved in contact in the first 7 laps. And I think, yes, he has. Tony Richet get a front wing change.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Tony. He started at the back of the grid with that the qualifying ban. It's not a race ban, he's still racing. But again, it's just giving him the opportunity to put on a fresh set of mediums, get a little bit of a pace advantage here. Try and take away the fastest lap from maybe one of these drivers who are going to be looking to put it onto the medium slightly later in the race. And it also kind of opens up his strategy in case there is a safety car called. And you would have to think with the race, they're defending and attacking positions in front and behind them respectively. You might just consider the fact of a safety car being almost a guaranteed feature in this race.
Of course, I think it's more than possible a safety car here is hit. It's put notice a massive slide coming through. He nearly caused a safety car heading into turn 10. Big slide off the rear of that McLaren. That could have ended very badly indeed for the Veloci Academy driver. As we see Dylan Warren on the back of Max Wiesel as they head up in toward turn number 1, looking to get a move here on the back of the Red Bull, obviously being the TF10 team, obviously, you know, 7th in the 8th, sorry, in the standings. They need some much deserved points, and we can see Max looking to take P2 away as Dylan looking to try and take P3. Couldn't quite get it done in towards the braking zone, but Tygo Hardy will be loving this. F7R will be clapping their hands, knowing they've got a P5 possibly on the cards, maybe even higher, if they can get this strategy right.
Absolutely, and you would have to consider as well that they're looking in a very decent place to be able to outscore Williams and retake the lead of the championship here. That might be something that no one predicted after that qualifying result, but they've found themselves in this position, and once again, F7R have magicked their way up into a brilliant position, looking forward to this championship, always consistently there to make the most of opportunities given to them, and that's certainly something that the likes of Tycho Hardy and even Daniel Kjelder have also been able to capitalise on here today. Daniel's still running in P10, but again, he's very close to the rear of the SRC driver Riccardo Benozzi, so that could potentially be a cause for maybe a little bit of dramatic action, especially when you've got Thomas Ronhaar pushing you through corners, making you carry a little bit of extra speed. You might not necessarily want to, because we know how quick Thomas Ronhaar can be heading through turn 1 and especially turn 3 as well. Of course, he's relentless.
Indeed, as we can see, Max Wiesel into P2 ahead of Dylan, and now Tycho Hardy looking to paint on the back of the Veloci Academy driver. Has got the inside line there, and Otis just tucks himself back ahead of Tycho. Does Tycho go to the outside? Yes, he does. Can he get the move done around the outside here of Otis? Lawrence Otis is going to have the inside. We'll go on board with Lenny Pepita to see the action there. It also unfolds, and Otis does keep that move ahead, of course. Tycho Hardy and Lenny also looking to try and paint as well if he can, to try and make some positions in this race. Down in P6 is not the worst position, but he'd definitely like to be a little bit higher than P6 at this point in the race. And that gap to Alfie Butcher did increase. It did decrease, but it's now increased yet again back up to 2.2 seconds. So it's looking even stronger here for the RHG driver. We can see as well in P11, obviously Thomas Ronhaar looking to gain some more positions here in this race. He's done a decent job, hasn't he? Obviously capitalising off people making mistakes. He's now on the brink of a top 10 finish. Could be decent, and could be something that RHG really need. They're what? 6th in the standings, 90 points, about 30 points back off of both SRC and Ferrari and Race Clutch. They definitely need some much deserved points, as we can see. Obviously there, Max Wiesel down to 3rd, Otis around the outside at turn 3. They go side by side. Tycho Hardy yet again looking to try and make a move here, Josh.
He's there, he's opportunistic when these opportunities come up. You'll see Otis already pull into the inside there, trying to look for a move on Max, and then realised all of a sudden Tycho Hardy's directly behind him with that slipstream. But Tycho's got a little bit of defending to do here, because Lenny Pepinta's found an opportunity to strike again. And all it takes is you to move offline once, try and go for an overtake, and it not work out. And all of a sudden, because all these drivers are so close on track in the DRS train, opportunity just opens up behind you. And then it's for like Lenny Pepinta. Then you would have to consider Lenny might have been run offline slightly, and that gives an opportunity to Jack Weston. It's just a concertina effect all the way down the grid. And that's part of the reason why E-Series is so fantastic, because all these drivers are so quick, and they're all so consistent. Matching one another's lap time, and it creates this brilliant scene of racing here, especially with the likes of Dylan Warren, Max Wiesel, Otis Lawrence leading the field. But again, you can look at any of these drivers in the top 7, top 8, top 9. I mean, realistically, even the likes of Thomas Ronhaar, Louis Welstein in P11, P12, they could feasibly be in with a chance to win this, depending on how much they want to push during this first stint. Nurture the tyres for the second stint, as we see Thomas Ronhaar getting the up and under there, getting side by side here with Daniel Kjelder. Probably looking to try and get a move to the inside,
Dylan.
but that's disaster for Ferrari.
Oh, a big shame for Dylan Warren and Ferrari to unfortunately lose connection and leave the session. He's going to drop down all the way through the positions. Big shame for Ferrari here tonight. Barry had a bit of an incident. It seems he's got damage. He's down in P16, and Dylan, he's just going to crumble down, obviously with not being in the session. Big shame for Ferrari, and it was looking strong, but now it's looking quite bad, and now it's gone even worse for the team. But that promotes likes of Tycho and Lenny up one more position, and F7R, they find troubles in qualifying, but in the race, how? P4.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you here, Nathan. They've just done it.
It's like the waves have been parted for the S7R AlphaTaurians to get themselves some more positions, and that also now puts Daniel Koya into the top 10. Louis Welch will be looking to gain in and get himself some DRS on the back of Dylan Warren, of course, as that gap will flow down towards him and the Ferrari. We can see Keaton Lutt as well sitting right behind the back of Louis Welch, but he's also got a penalty which will definitely harm his race and harm his chance of scoring points. And TES, they're looking quite consistent. They're not dropping back. They're chilling there in those positions. As we can see, Otis Lawrence now ahead of Max Wiesling to P2. And Dylan Warren is back.
Yes, thankfully. As soon as I saw him disconnect, I already chucked him an invite, thinking the worst. But his computer hasn't crashed. He's been able to get back in. So hopefully he'll be able to continue on this race. But you've got to think it must be so bitter knowing that you was up there running for a potential race win with the likes of Max Wiesel, Otis Lawrence, and Alfie Butcher, to then reconnect and find yourself in P12. Ooh. It's gonna hurt.
Indeed, and he reconnected and the car slid across the circuit, so I don't think it was quite... I don't think the car was too happy with being reconnected back to the driver, and now he's under pressure from Keaton Lutt, who's going to look to the inside at turn number 1, backs off for now, doesn't want to make the move there in towards the first corner. He knows it's a little bit, risk-taking there to make a move into turn 1 here at the Red Bull Ring, so he stops behind and looks to make it a little bit further along the circuit. We can see Max Wiesel yet again ahead of Otis Lawrence and Tiger Hardy tucking in behind, along with Lenny Pepinta and Jack West. Thomas Ronhart arguing here with Riccardo Benzoni on the exit. And Dylan's gone again, so another big shame here for Ferrari. As we can see, Riccardo losing the position here to Thomas Ronhart. Thomas flying here, isn't he, into P8, started P14.
Absolutely. It's like I said, he's inevitable. He's the one who knocks. He's the one who makes moves. And he's overall just the beast of this Formula 123 game, isn't he? You know he's inevitable. He will come. He will show up. He will make moves. And he will challenge you. Regardless of where you stand on the track, he wants to fight. He wants to battle. And he breathes this close caliber racing. And it's exactly the reason why he's competing here in E-Series. Because he wants to prove he's the best. He doesn't want any stone unturned, and what a way to do so by recovering R8G from not necessarily a terrible position in the standings, but certainly not the best, and being able to work together with the likes of Alfie Butcher to help elevate them and the Sabre outfit to a whole new level. And that's certainly something he's been looking to do here for this Grand Prix. It's certainly something he's going to be continuing for the second half of this race here as well, as we're already on lap 14. Nathan, this has absolutely flown by.
It has, hasn't it? We're on, we're nearly halfway here in this Austrian Grand Prix, and we've had lots of carnage in the first few laps, and somehow no safety cars as Nico Benz gets another 3-second penalty for track limit warnings. That puts him now to, it'll be, I think, 5, 8, 11 seconds of penalties here in this race. Big shame indeed for Nico Benz, and it just hasn't gone right at all for him here in this Grand Prix, along with his teammate Keaton Lutt, who's made some positions. But P12 with a 3-second penalty will drop him down at this point to around P15. So yet again, a big shame for NVR here in this championship. As we can see, though, further ahead, Jack West doing a decent job here on the mediums. But you've got to think here, Josh, he's going to be going probably onto a set of hards. He'll be, he'll be under a lot of compromisation towards the end of this race.
Yes, but if you consider what he's done, he's jumped up 9 positions on this medium compound tyre. Yeah, he might be a little vulnerable in the second half of the stint, but he made the most of this medium tyre. He didn't let it go to waste. He was able to get the moves and get himself into a good bit of track position, and he's still latching onto the back of his DRS train. So if he is able to kind of follow these guys for maybe 1 or 2 extra laps, keep within the DRS, he could find himself in a brilliant position to be slowly pulled along as we got Lenny Pepinta, as Nico Benz retires in the pits, but Lenny Pepinta's looking to try and make a move on Tycho Hardy, dubbing it to the outside, trying to get the...
Oh, Josh, hello.
I think with the pace Lenny Pepinta's been showing, he's going to be looking to try and get that move sooner rather than later.
Yes, Josh, we just missed that because you disappeared on Discord for a split second,
for
about 10 seconds. So I heard something about Lenny Pepinta. That's kind of it. And luckily it wasn't an issue in mine because normally it is. So yes, I was managed to make sure for once it wasn't the stream having an issue. But we can see obviously yet again the train just following each other down towards turn number 1, and that gap between Alfie and Otis not really decreasing whatsoever as Barry Burman's into the pit lane. So early undercut here for the Ferrari. Does he have a wing change here? Because surely he's got damage on that Ferrari.
Yeah, wing change. Yeah, 100%. You could tell, couldn't you? He just seemed to lose so much pace, not only through the corners, but also on the straight. Something really wasn't working. So it's good that he's been able to get it fixed. Hopefully he'll be able to get back up to the pace we know Barry's able to deliver on a week-in, week-out basis, as we've got more battles happening throughout the grid. Otis Lawrence and Max Wiesel. Otis there with a very aggressive swipe back across to the racing line. showing maybe he doesn't necessarily want to work with Max here, and he's more than happy to take home a P2. But I agree with the YouTube chat. We've got Avatar saying P2, P3, and P4 shouldn't fight as much. They need to cooperate together to catch up to Alfie Butcher, and I've got to say, Avatar is completely right there.
He is, definitely. I think going into this here, if they keep fighting, they're just going to lose more and more time. They've shown it because they have lost more time to Alfie Butcher, who's now got a 2.4 second gap. At one point, it was down to 1.8 seconds. So 0.6 might not seem like a lot, but it is definitely quite a lot in terms of track position and where you are on the circuit. So these drivers have a lot of work to do to catch themselves back up to Alfie Butcher. We can see further back, of course, Kian Godendorp still ahead of Thomas Ronhard, been under pressure for a few laps, but has still kept himself ahead for now. And also we can see Max making a move ahead of Otis. We can see as well Lenny Pepinta looking to close in and just can't find a move on Tiger Hardy. Tiger Hardy sends a move here on Otis, obviously get himself into P3. Can he get it done on the exit? Is going to be close, but yet again not close enough to get that move solidified. And also we can see further back Lenny Pepinta looking to close in.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see Otis and Max swapping positions once again, Tiger Hardy squeezing Lenny to the inside, forcing him on the grass there. I'm sure the stewards might have a little look at that, but now you've got to consider Tiger Hardy. He knows he's in a very awkward position here. He's got Max Wiesel, who's slightly offline, won't be carrying as much speed. They're trading DRS, aren't they? Otis and Max, P2 and P3 in this race respectively, trading at DRS, trying to continue and close that gap up to Alfie Butcher, but it doesn't necessarily seem whatever they're doing is working to the effect they would want it to have. Perhaps it might be time to maybe consider an undercut. At this moment in time, they would be looking to come out around about Dylan Warren's area, down at P15, but still ahead of Ishmael Fassi, and they would have a little bit of clean air to get a couple laps in, as we see Jack West, Kian Gondorp both diving in the pits, and also Nelson Alvarez as well.
Indeed, they're hard tyres, of course, for Jack West. It'll be, I presume, medium tyres here for Kian Godendorp. It will be medium tyres for the Williams driver, and they head out the pits once again, and Jack, of course, ahead of Kian as they exit onto turn one once again to begin their second stint in this race. We can see once again Otis Lawrence fighting, of course, with Max Wiesel to try and gain themselves a little bit closer to the back of Alfie Butcher, who's still got that large gap of 2.3 seconds, and we're at the half point away of this race now. 18 laps completed out of 36, and we'll see Alfie probably pit quite soon. We can see Tiger Hardy, of course, also sitting there in P4. He's just chilling along, looking for something to happen. Kian, of course, back ahead of Jack as new hards versus new mediums. We know exactly what time will be quicker, but we could see Jack get a little bit quicker once we get to the end phase of the race.
Absolutely, those hards are just going to have a little breaking-in moment where they'll slowly keep building at pace, and as soon as those mediums hit the drop-off point, the hards will consistently be quicker lap after lap. As you see Max Wiesel now looking for a move to the inside at turn one, backs out there. You can see the red flashing light of Otis Lawrence there indicating he was below 10% ERS, and I'm not sure whether you can see on the stream, Max Wiesel has an abundance of ERS to use here, and also, so does Alfie Butcher. He's been saving it a little bit. So has Tycho Hardy, so we could potentially be seeing Otis Lawrence here being taken advantage of by these guys and being made out to be a bit of a fool by burning so much of his ERS to hold on to P2 here, has put him in certainly a very vulnerable position, maybe even to the likes of Lenny Pepinta, who's looking to dance it around the outside here of McLaren car. Is he able to do it? He just about almost was able to do it, got squeezed slightly onto the AstroTurf, and again, with all this battling going on, the beast, he lurks still in P6, waiting for that opportunity, and you know as soon as it provides itself towards him, he's going to jump on it immediately.
Of course, we can welcome back Thomas Ronhard to this top six battle now, looking to fight, but there's many people looking to pit here at this point. We can see Otis Lawrence, I believe, looking to make a pit stop along with Tycho Hardy, so they'll enter the pits and get themselves a new set of medium tyres on, so Alfie Butcher still leads ahead of Max Wiesel, ahead of Lenny Pepinta now, ahead of Thomas Ronhard. Ricardo Benzoni slotting in P5, still yet to make a pit stop in this race, of course. What we can see further back now, it will be the likes of Jack West looking to just sit behind the back of Kian and drag himself along with some DRS, which at the moment they haven't, well, he's struggling to keep in. He's got a 6/10 gap, which isn't really ideal. He wants to be a lot closer to that, especially so he doesn't lose it. So if he makes one mistake now, he could lose it. He wants to be a little bit more closer so he can afford to make a slight mistake. Obviously on those set of tyres, we can see further back there, Tycho Hardy coming out just behind his teammate Daniel Kvyat. Obviously 1.4 second gap for them to close to the lead runners being Kian and Jack, the top two. Provisionally here in this race, we can see further back Louis Welch looking for an argument here with Reese Linton, who was obviously at one point factoring for the lead, but now, obviously due to that incident at the start of the race, he's all the way down with Barry Burman in P15 and P16.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate for them, as well as Ishmael Fassi, who finds himself stone last, P19 so far in this race. It's not indicative of his pace at all. It's very unfortunate what happened there. Again, I'm sure the stewards will have a little look at it, but we can see Barry Burman now slowly just keeping Riesling honest there. With that fresh compounded tyre on the Ferrari, you can expect him to be looking to try and make a move on this Alpine car sooner rather than later, and there it is. Taken around the outside, heading through turn 7 there. Brilliant move from a Ferrari driver. But you mentioned before, Jack West and Daniel Koya. There we go. Sorted. I don't know why I just decided to forget to say his name. Coming out ahead of Tycho Hardy, Otis Lawrence, Max Wiesel now. The undercut is powerful, but you've got to think when it gets towards the end of this race, that's when the tyres are really going to start to be punished. And despite Alfie Butcher having that 3-second gap to the cars behind, he's still going to be looking to come out behind the likes of Jack West and behind the likes of Kian as well.
Indeed, but he's going to have newer tyres, which he can obviously use to his advantage. So we'll see what Alfie could do here, what his strategy will be, of course, being on those. When he gets, I presume, going onto a new set of medium tyres, we can see, obviously, Barry there, passing his teammate. Dylan obviously disconnected again, didn't get in for quite a while. That's why he's down in P15 without making a pit stop. Big show, and I do, have a commiseration for Dylan Warren down in P15, as we can see. Thomas, Lenny and Ricardo will go into the pit lane now for what I presume will be a new set of medium tyres. Keelan Lutz and Alfie Butcher still will stay out on their set of hards. Is Alfie leaving this a little bit too late, do you think, Josh?
Perhaps. I mean, we know the undercut's powerful, but the overcut is equally as powerful if you get yourself in that right scenario where you've got so much more fresher tyres than those you're driving against. So if he was able to keep it out here for maybe 2 or 3 extra laps, just consistently burning away at his ERS as well, he could certainly find himself in a window where he is able to get an overcut to work. He will be able to go onto a brand new set of medium tyres and be able to push that little bit harder and make sure that he's able to get to the end of this race without those medium tyres necessarily dropping off that cliff, which is certainly something the likes of Kian and Daniel might have to worry about, currently sitting in P4, P5. But you've got to think as well, with these not all within a DRS trade, as long as they're not trying to make moves, they will slowly be reeling in and gaining more and more, as we see Alfie Butcher here taking towards the inside line at turn 9, which indicates he's diving it into the pit lane. Surely it's a set of mediums.
Indeed, it should be indeed for Alfie Butcher. He'll take those all the way to the end of this race, and we can see still the leaders on track is Jack West ahead of Keane, ahead of Daniel Kaya, who's still in that top 3 there. F7 are looking to, try and get themselves a very good result, considering their qualifying was quite dismal here tonight in Austria. We can see as well Otis Lawrence looking to gain in on the back of Tycho Hardy. He can't make a move into turn 1, but he will be looking to try and get it soon. We'll see where Alfie Butcher comes out. He'll come out in P8. Will he come out behind Thomas? Yes, he will. No, he'll come out just ahead of Thomas Ronhard. Now Thomas is going to try and hold up the others, so they can't get past us. That being Nelson Alves and Lenny Pepinto. We can see Kean take the lead, or the net lead, ahead of Jack. Daniel Corr ahead of Otis. Otis ahead of Tycho Hardy as well as they head down towards turn 4. You noticed anything there, Josh?
Yeah, Lenny Pepinto sent an absolute miracle of a dive bomb to the inside of Thomas Ronhard. A little bit of contact, but Thomas was able to defend it heading into turn 3, and now he's been able to reclaim that position just behind his teammate, sneaking in there. Without Lenny Pepinto being able to cause too much of a distraction. But for a moment, I thought Lenny Pepinto was absolutely on a mad one, sending it to the inside of Thomas Ronhard and making it stick. Would be one of the very few drivers who might be able to say they've caught Thomas Ronhard napping. But brilliant job so far from Thomas and Alfie Butcher, both of them now on very, very fresh tyres in comparison to the rest of the grid. But you do have to think Jack West finds himself in a very good position, considering where he started in qualifying as well, in a very similar boat to the F7R drivers.
Indeed, yeah. He started quite far back, didn't he? Of course, Jack West, due to making a bit of an error in that Q1 session, and we can see as well Max Wiesel looking to get himself a little bit higher up in the grid. He was, he qualified not the best position compared to where he was after that incident. He was then in P8, then got up into P3 until the carnage unfolded down at turn 4. And we can see Daniel ahead of Otis. Otis ahead of Daniel. Jack looking to close in as well. We can see Max looking to get himself ahead of Keane. They're all looking to make moves on the grid, and Jack now will be looking to work together here with Otis to make it 3 wide in towards turn number 4. Daniel on the outside. Otis pushes him a little bit wide, and still Otis keeps the lead. Daniel trying to tuck back in the inside at turn 6. Can he get it done? No, he can't. Jack going to be looking to try and make a move. He can't either. He's stuck behind, and now Tycho Hardy looking to get involved in the battle. This is looking here to be a VA versus F7R battle.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be the first time we saw these two titans of the community swinging it out, having a strong battle throughout the rest of the race. Something I do want to point out there was Otis Lawrence being very, very cautious into turn 4, braking a lot earlier than Daniel expected, forcing Daniel to the outside so he wasn't able to just follow through, which gave Jack West that opportunity. So we're going to have to keep an eye out for Otis Lawrence. almost brake testing, but not in a malicious way. He was just trying to find an opportunity for Jack West to make an overtake. It wasn't done with the intention of trying to slow up or damage Daniel. It just wanted to pressure Daniel, as we're going to see him go 2 by 2. The AlphaTauris, the F7R, both to the inside. As we see Daniel there making it work on Otis and Tycho making it work on Jack here. Brilliant stuff from these drivers. Keeping it very fair and very clean as well. It's lovely to see.
Of course, so we can see Tycho Hardy there making a send on the back of the McLaren. Can't quite get it done on the exit as they head through and towards turn 6. So it's an F7R13, a V8 2.4. As you can see Alfie Butcher there making a move ahead of Keane. What happened there, Josh?
Alfie Butcher just sent around the outside for a minute. I thought he was going to get both of them in the same note. That's a brilliant move from Alfie. Very opportunistic, finding Max Wiesel and Keane battling for position. As we're going to see Alfie go to the inside here as well.
Oof, what a move there.
Oh my word. What Weetabix does he have this morning?
Well, something that I wouldn't mind because I'm running out of energy. He's obviously not here at the moment in this race. We can see Ron Haar, of course, ahead of Keane Godendorp as they head up towards turn 1. And Ron Haar also battling ahead of Max Wiesel. Brilliant move there by Thomas Ron Haar, getting past 2 cars into one corner now. RHG, at one point you're thinking, might not be the best for Thomas. But at this point it's going to be, well, it's a 4-6 right now. It could be definitely a lot higher once we get to the end of this race. Alfie Butcher ahead of Jack West now. Ron Haar fighting with Keane Godendorp on the exit. We're going to have Lenny Pinto fight with Max Wiesel as well for P8 and P9 as they all head down towards turn 4. We've got Tycho Hardy there and his teammates. Daniel Kaya swapping round in towards turn 4. We can still see them battling. 3 wide in towards turn 4 they go. It's going to be Lenny ahead of Max, ahead of Kian, and Max is going to be took to the outside. We can see now Riccardo Benzoni getting involved as they head down, and Max on the grass.
Absolutely ferocious fight. And Lenny Pinto went to the inside of turn 4, got squeezed on the grass, kept his position. Max Wiesel as well, holding it around the outside throughout the entirety of turn 4. And having a very aggressive squeeze there from Kian, which has allowed Riccardo Benzoni to sneak his way through in P8 here. And you've got to think he's on 4-lap old tyres. You've got, Otis, Tycho, Daniel all ahead of him on older tyres. And we're starting to see Jack West slowly start falling off with these hard tyres during the remainder of this stint. But those tyres will come back to him. It's just a matter of time of how quickly are those medium tyres going to get burnt through. As we've had, a 2v2 battle so far, but it's more of a freeway at this point, isn't it? With Otis leading the Veloce Academy drivers, Tycho leading the F7Rs, and Alfie Butcher leading the R8G drivers here. It's certainly going to come down to the wire here, and I don't even want to make a prediction anymore.
Well, I don't either because I don't want to curse anyone. As we can see Alfie Butcher there making a large send on the back of Daniel Kaya. And the last time he had a 1-2 here in his series last season back in Monaco with Veloce Academy. This season it's looking like it's going to be either RHG or F7R possibly looking to try and make it a 1-2. As we can see side by side Benzoni and Jack West, and Jack being eaten up by the field here. Nothing he can do on those older hard tyres. As we can see moves further ahead being made. Thomas Ron Haar looking to get himself ahead of Daniel Kaya. Couldn't get it done into turn 9. Can't obviously get it done here into turn 10, but he could look for it down towards turn number 1. 3-lap better tyres here for Ron Haar. Going to pull to the inside, and we never see moves being made into turn 1. Well, for some reason Thomas Ron Haar is making that a common appearance here in E-Series Season 3 at Austria as they head back up towards turn 3 once again. And now RHG in a perfect position, sitting 3rd and 4th. We've got Otis and Tycho battling for the lead. Alfie's going to look to get involved as well as they head down to turn 3. Lenny Pinto ahead of Daniel Kaya. Daniel down to P6. Big shame for him. He was leading the race a few laps ago, and they head yet again down to turn 4. And Tycho looking to get on the back of Otis Torrance once again.
Yeah, absolutely. And considering the teamwork we've seen from RHG there, Thomas Ron Haar's able, and he's been given these opportunities to make moves down into turn 1 because Alfie Butcher's offering him a little bit of slipstream. But of course, we've got Daniel Kaya still looking to try and defend from the likes of Riccardo Benzoni. He's starting to love this move around the outside of turn 6, isn't he? That's the 3rd one in a row he's been able to pull off. Lenny Pinto's next upon his list. Is that going to be a feasible overtake for him to make? Or has Lenny just got that little bit extra pace to hold on to the back of Thomas Ron Haar when it's needed? I feel like we might be able to find out next time we approach the turn 6, because so far it looks like these drivers are absolutely pushing the limits of what they're capable of, and it's fantastic to watch. Hopefully all of you at home are enjoying this just as much as myself and Nathan are. But with 7 laps remaining, I feel like it's only fair to ask you guys for a prediction as they rise up the hill once again to turn 3.
Well, I would make a prediction, but I'm not, so I don't want to curse anyone, and I don't want anyone to hate me in the chat afterwards. So we'll see who takes it, but any one of these top 6, I think, will be the winner here tonight. We can see Alfie Butcher now looking to close in on the Tycho Hardy. He's going to go to the inside here of the AlphaTauri. Can he get the move done in towards the corner? He'll go to the inside, gets it done very nicely there. And a little bit of a push line there for Tiger Hardy. Alfie Butcher into second. Ron Haar obviously still sitting there in P4, but he'll be looking to get himself past Tiger Hardy very, very shortly. Dylan Warren in the pit lane onto a set of soft tyres for the Ferrari. So obviously a day that has not gone well for the Scuderia whatsoever here tonight. Big shame indeed for them to, at one point, looking to try and make a big charge in the standings, and F7R looking to try and increase, and SRC looking to try and increase their gap to Ferrari. Obviously, SRC matching Ferrari's points with 120 here tonight. That gap will go increasingly higher. Obviously, in SRC's favour, we can see Thomas Ron Haar looking to gain himself ahead of F7R Tiger Hardy. Into turn one they go. Better exit on these newer tyres, and now it's time to paint, I think, here for the RHG.
Surely this is going to be his moment. Heading up into turn 3, his teammate goes defensive, offers a little bit of assistance, but Tiger Hardy's having absolutely none of it, is he? He's sending that one to the inside onto Alfie Butcher, but now you've got to assume Thomas Ron Haar's going to get the run, and he certainly does. We see... Back down in 4th position as we see a move for the lead from Alfie Butcher. He was dominant in the first stint, and we might be seeing that resurgence come back as well, because so far it looks like RHG are definitely the team to beat. Their strategy has been pinpoint accurate, and now I feel like it's only going to be a matter of time before we see Thomas Ron Haar looking to make a move on Otis Lawrence here. While we've still got battles breaking out all throughout the field. Ricardo Benzoni's on the back of Lenny Papinto, who's on the back of Tycho Hardy now as well. Especially Jack West seems to have found a little bit more life in these hard compound tyres, trying to put a bit more pressure on Daniel. It's breaking out all over the shop, Nathan.
It is indeed, and at this point, if my calculations are correct, RHG could be on the cards to take away 63 points here tonight. 63 points, which would put them possibly into 3rd. That's how much points they're taking tonight, if they can get a 1-2. But it's still many laps to go through. 5 more laps remaining in this race as Thomas Ron Haar tries to make it a 1-2 for RHG. Gets to the inside of Otis Lawrence, gets the move completed. Now into P2 goes Thomas Ron Haar, and now RHG in a prime position to take as many points as they can here in this race. But Otis is going to be trying to fight back. Can't get it done into turn 4. But still we can see Tycho and Lenny on the scene looking to try and make some moves. So we'll see if they can also try and get involved with this battle. But I think Lenny and Ricardo are in a good position because both Otis and Tycho have got older tyres than them.
Absolutely. They're looking at a brilliant opportunity here to try and get the jump on the likes of Otis and Tycho, as you mentioned. But not only that as well, this race still isn't won by Thomas Ron Haar and Alfie Butcher. There's still 5 laps to go. If we're able to clear Tycho and Otis and catch up to that DRS, we could potentially see a couple games between the different teams. Maybe a little bit of assistance between the teams. Just trying to help each other keep up to the back of the RHG and then go for a last lap dash to find out who's deserving of a potential race win here. It's certainly something I would love to see here unfold, but something else we might be seeing unfold here is Max Wiesel still in P9 at this moment in time. Jack West had a terrible run coming out of turn 1, but heading up into turn 3 here, Max Wiesel's just not close enough to send a dive bomb. He's going to have to sit and wait behind for another lap, and each lap which goes on, Jack West is getting quicker and quicker on that hard compound tyre. I feel like it's not over yet for this top 7 battle.
Of course, yeah. I think Jack will be a lot quicker towards the end of this race and could try and make a few more positions once we get towards those last 2 laps here in the Austrian Grand Prix. We can see further ahead, though, Ricardo Benzoni right at the back of Lenny Papinto. It could be a decent top 5 finish here for SLC if they can get their cards right on the final couple of laps. Further back, we can see Max Wiesel looking to make some moves. But a team we can congratulate, I think, here at this point is TES. Started last, 19th and 20th. They're now sitting 11th and 13th. Brilliant from the TES team. They could also be looking to try and take away a top 10, which would be the first time this season for the Mercedes operating team. So it would be very good, and I think the team will be very, very delighted with the possibility of that here tonight. But we can see more moves looking to be made. Jack West still under pressure here from Max Wiesel. They head up towards turn 3. A good exit here from Max as they head up towards this third corner. He's got the DRS, of course, to use, but yet again just can't put alongside the back of that Veloci Academy car. But we can see as well in 3rd place, Otis Lawrence. He's kind of a little bit stuck of what to do. What can he do here at this point, Josh?
Recharge his battery. Understand these next couple of laps are going to be crucial for his opportunity to be able to climb up on the podium, to maybe even get onto that second or maybe even the first step. He's got to recharge that battery as much as he can and then plan to deploy it to try and catch Alfie Butcher or Thomas Ron Haar off guard, depending on if these guys are going to keep switching positions or not. I feel like it's something that they're looking to try and use to try and escape the grasp of Otis, Tycho, maybe even the likes of Lenny and Ricardo, because realistically, I can still see these guys looking to try and get themselves on the podium as well. With the pace they've shown throughout the entirety of the race, and the fact they're on fresher tyres as well, it gives an ample opportunity of them to try and climb themselves slightly higher up. But Otis Lawrence is doing exactly what he needs to do. He's keeping in touch. He's charging his battery up. As we see the lead RHG driver, Thomas Ronhard, deploying just a little bit to make sure he's able to pull Alfie Butcher along with him. Brilliant display of teamwork here from RHG, swapping the DRS almost religiously on every single lap, as we see Lenny Papinta there under a little bit of pressure from Riccardo Benzoni, but it's not going to work there. Riccardo can't put it around the outside, but surely we're going to start seeing these battles start to break out in the next lap.
Of course, and I think Riccardo's going to be looking to try and get himself closer, if not ahead of Lenny Papinta, because he's got the pace to do so, but he just couldn't yet find that move ahead of the race coach Alpine. So we'll see once he can get that move done, and I think he can definitely do it. I think he's got the pace, he's shown it so far, and he has obviously stuck his nose up the inside of the Alpine multiple times here in this race. But we look back towards the top three once again, and we got what? We're about to start lap 35, the penultimate lap of this race, and it's still an RHG 1-2. Alfie leading Thomas, and then Otis Lawrence sitting right behind in third. We'll see what can he do. Can he try and make a last lap lunge here to get himself onto the top step, or at least onto the second step of the podium? But we can see further back, Lenny Papinta right on the back here, pushing pretty much Toko Hardy through and towards turn 1. I think this lap and next lap is where we'll see massive battery dumps down towards turn 3.
Absolutely. I don't want to cause any commentator curse, because we know I'm prominent towards those. But Otis Lawrence has picked up 3 warnings, so he's going to have to take it a little bit more careful on these next couple of laps, as we see Lenny Papinta with a brave, bold and audacious move up the inside. Tycho Hardy doing everything in his power to try and fight it back, heading down into turn 4. But that might be an all she wrote, as Lenny Papinta grabs that inside line and will defend the apex beautifully, putting Tycho Hardy down to P5. And Lenny Papinta climbs himself up into P4 here, and he's still within touch to try and make a move on Otis Lawrence on the very final lap of this race.
Indeed, absolutely brilliant there from Lenny to get himself into the top 4, and could even be looking to take a top 3 depending what happens between Otis, Thomas and Alfie. It's they're 3 young guns, 3 drivers relatively new towards the esports scene. Obviously, both Thomas and Alfie being in the Pro Series lineup for the RHG team. So these two, they've been at the top, and Otis definitely will be close to it soon. So this is a brilliant battle between 3 brilliant young drivers, and we'll see who can take the win here tonight. The gap now on towards the final lap of this race is 5 tenths between Alfie, Thomas and Otis. Has got a 6/10 gap to Thomas here, so I don't know if he's going to be even close enough to try and think about making a move here, Josh.
Necessary, and they've been able to maintain a gap, as we've seen moves break out throughout the entire field. We got Jack West and of course Max Wiesel going wheel to wheel, bashing, having a little rub in his racing moment, and that's given Kian Gorndorp the opportunity he might need to try and get a move sorted on one of these to climb himself up into 9th place. But the way these lot are squabbling, they could see them both crash out the race. It's absolutely fantastic racing towards the midfield as well. I don't feel like I could call it.
Well, I think Max is still heavily ahead, and we go towards the final few corners. And RHG, what a performance! Alfie Butcher started on the front row. He will come home through into the final corners to take the victory here at Austria. And Thomas Ronhard started 14th. He'll make it a complete front row finish for the RHG team. 2nd place for him. And Otis Lawrence will get 3rd position for Veloce Academy. And Max Wiesel got a 3-second penalty on the final corner. He drops down now to P12, and that's a big shame for the TF10 team. But what a finale, and RHG absolutely unstoppable, and that's a team, and that's a lineup. We said at the start, Josh, they'll be fighting hard, and they'll get it, and well, they certainly did.
Absolutely dominant performance there from RHG to find themselves dominating in the first stint on Alfie Butcher's half, pulling away from the field, keeping his nose clean, and then Thomas Ronhard finding the opportunities to climb himself back up through the field. Brilliant stuff there from the RHG drivers. And also the F7R drivers, both of them finishing ahead of Kian, who was the lead Williams car. So we could see the standings change up here once again to see a community team take the lead in the E-Series standings for, well, it technically would be the 2nd time we've ever seen it.
Indeed. He was superb, wasn't it? Absolutely superb. And Thomas Ronhard, driver of the day, well deserved. And well, if we didn't have that contact on lap 2 of the race, or lap 1, wherever it was, we might not have seen a 1-2. RHG could class themselves very lucky in that sense. But in terms of teamwork, it was superb. You look for a definition of teamwork, you could show them a clip of RHG here tonight. It was absolutely brilliant. And we can see now the final classification here of the Austrian Grand Prix. Helping Butcher, who wins ahead of Thomas Ronner, ahead of Otis Lawrence, who collects the podium. Then we have Lenny Pipinter in P4, Tiger Hardy in P5, Riccardo Benzoni in P6, ahead of Daniel Koyap, Jack West, Keane Goldendup, and Louis Welch rounding out the top 10. Then we have Nelson Alves in P11, followed by Max Wiesel in 12th, Barry Bromance in 13th. Big shame for Ferrari to obviously be on the front row and now down to 13th. Modesto Mina in 14th, Keaton Locke 15th, Ishmael Fassi in P16, Reece Linton in 17th from pole. Then we have obviously Dylan Moore, and also very unfortunate here in this race in P18, followed by Tony Richet in 19th and Nico Benz, who DNF'd in the race. So big shame, of course, for the likes of MVR and also Ferrari, and you could say TF10 heavily.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, a lot of the other teams ahead of them were fighting for positions, fighting for podiums. They've been struck down, haven't they? They were forced to settle with only a P12, which is going to give the teams they're trying to challenge with the likes of RHG and Veloce a little escape road to try and catch back up to SRC, Race Clutch, F7R, and Williams as well. I mean, I know we're heading into the halfway point of this season, but you still can't call it. It might as well be round one all over again.
Indeed, I think it was. Oh, what a race it was. And the championship standings yet again can change heavily, and hopefully we can have a word from some of the top three in the interview room. We'll switch ourselves over to the interview screen ready to have a chat with hopefully one or two or even all three of our top threes, and Otis says no. I don't know, I won't be disappointed, but I don't think he wants an interview today, which is fair enough.
Yes, I mean, especially given how much these drivers were pushed in that race. It was to ridiculous levels, wasn't it? Realistically, you can understand if they want to have a little breather, a little break, maybe go get themselves a drink instead of jumping.
Oh, Josh has gone again. Josh?
We'll have for him as well. It was absolutely fantastic. I mean, that race from start to finish, action-packed, drama every lap. It was fantastic to watch. It was fantastic to be a part of it. It was a fantastic opportunity here once again for these teams to show what they're made of. And sort of show their caliber of teamwork as well. It's not something which often gets shown in PSGL, being more of a single champion, singles driver championship orientated route during the traditional season. But getting this opportunity to show that they're able to work together in such a fantastic manner is absolutely fantastic.
Indeed. And we will have Alfie in for an interview. He said he's on his way, so wait for him to pop in and we can drag him in and have a chat. We should see him in the interview room shortly. And sometimes they like to go to VC1 to be dragged in. I don't know why they do it. So we're going to try and sometimes scan around to find them somewhere where we can drag them in to the interview room. But that was an absolutely brilliant race. And this time I have got the interview screen on, so I won't leak the Discord, and we'll drag Alfie in. So Alfie, welcome in, mate. Brilliant race, P1. I don't think you could be any more happy with that, could you?
Yeah, I think the race went really well. Obviously, qualifying, we invalidated the last corner because I was on a bit of a mediocre lap, so I thought it was all or nothing. Luckily, we had a decent foundation lap, so we still qualified P3 and got into the lead early, and quite thankful I made that choice as I didn't get caught up in the chaos.
Indeed, and I thought, what happened at the start, because obviously I didn't quite catch what happened. All I saw was about 4 cars all collected down at the exit of turn 4.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you either. I just looked up, and suddenly the gap from 5 tenths has gone to 2.5 seconds. But I guess I wasn't complaining too much.
Indeed,
absolutely.
Yes.
Like the way you just managed that pace in the first stint was fantastic. I kept having a look back at you, just checking your battery, just making sure you were still holding on to a bit. And throughout that entire first stint, you held on to so much of your battery, and you maintained the gap despite them trying to DRS swap, despite them burning batteries to try and catch up with you. You just had a fantastic first stint, mate. It was phenomenal. I'm not sure what else I could say about it.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think I got told by the engineers to do your best to maintain the gap. Obviously, it was going to be slightly difficult with obviously them trying to use their batteries and DRS past each other. But I think we did a really good job maintaining the gap and even extending it at times. So yeah, I've got to be happy with the pace in the race.
Of course, I think obviously you and Thomas obviously worked together quite well towards the end. Do you think that teamwork kind of helped secure you wanted, or do you think you might be able to get it anyway?
Yeah, for sure. I think it helped a lot when we're getting through the pack. Definitely helped me because I was slightly low on fuel at the end of the race, so I had to do a bit of lifting, coasting, and throughout the lap. So it was definitely nice to have a teammate up there and help me out with that one.
Indeed, and I think that will be around 60 points for the team. So you'll jump up to, I think, around 3rd or 4th in the standings. So obviously a bit of a poor start for the team this season. Do you think you can still try and claw it back and get the championship?
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure we'll be aiming for that. And obviously, I think we've had a couple unlucky races in the first few. So, yeah, hopefully we can bounce back and this will be a good start.
Indeed, yeah. I think you both did a brilliant job. So thank you, Alf, for joining us, and we'll speak to you next time. So have a good one, mate.
Thank you. Bye.
And next we have Thomas Ronhar, started 14th up into second. What happened there? Because obviously you was in 14th, then all of a sudden you was in second.
Yeah, first for quali. Don't want to talk about that personally, but yeah, just invalidate the last corner basically. Definitely wasn't my intention, of course, but a very unlucky moment. And then yeah, tried to go for the overcut in the race, which was quite obvious, looking how far at the pack I was. A lot of chaos up ahead. I believe RV gapped the field by like 2.5 seconds at some point because of a big incident. I don't know if you caught it on stream, but I definitely had to look back and it looked quite chaotic. But nonetheless, played up good positions at the first stint, so I made myself in a solo position that I could help Alfie out because halfway through the race, I'm sure you asked him the questions already about the fuel. He has a few issues, so he needed to be a bit more conservative in the second stint. Otherwise, he would have been, I think, P1 like 5 laps earlier due to him having to lift a lot. Hence why I had to swap with him in the last 5 or 6 laps or so. So that was great teamwork, working together with such a great driver. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, was a good race.
I mean, it was brilliant from both you. Talk us a bit through that first stint as well, because you seem to make very calculated moves, and we sort of noticed you ended up having a little bit of a hot spot for turn 1. Could you run us through why you chose turn 1?
Personally, I wasn't going to go for all the time in turn 1. Usually I would go in turn 3. That's my favorite spot. But I had so much inner speed compared to the rest, like I also had in PSGL 2 days ago. I sort of knew if I used all my battery, I could pretty much get past with my whole car into turn 1 and pretty much gain the 3 spots without using too much of my battery because it's not a very long straight. And then set myself up for another move into turn 3 possibly. So that way I can make my progress 2 times as fast. Or at least try to, which worked quite well because I had to make some very quick moves very quickly to get anyone near the front, which worked quite well. And yeah, I'll certainly have a look back at the stream to how my overtakes went, and yeah, it was very fun.
It certainly looked it out on track, mate. I mean, once again, congratulations on you 1-2. Now, next up, we do have the week break, but how do you feel your chances are for Silverstone as a team?
As a team, definitely Silverstone has been a good track for us. The team is always very quick, so I'm sure of course, we had some unlucky races at the start, but I think as a team we are in a very strong position to fight for the P1 spot. Got unlucky last season, but I'm quite sure we can get in the mix, definitely.
Lovely stuff. Thank you again, Thomas, for coming and joining us. Go and enjoy your time with your engineers and with Alfie as well, celebrating that win. Fantastic job from both of you.
Thanks, Joshua. Thank Nathan as well. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, so we come towards the end of the stream, and isn't it brilliant, Josh, to have a word with our winners?
They're lovely. Like, wow. It's what I always say. Everyone in this PSGL community, you talk to them, they're absolutely lovely. They might post stuff on Twitter which you disagree with. You go and have a word with them. They're lovely. Thomas Ronhart, again, another example of that.
Yep.
Used to be one of the most hated people in the community. Now he's probably one of the most loved. He's just genuinely a sweetheart. It's fantastic getting the opportunity to talk to him, as well as Alfie as well, understanding that they didn't necessarily intend for that teamwork, but as soon as that call was made over the team radio, RHG knew exactly what to do and calculated it to a manner which was fantastic.
Brilliant. And I think the good thing about that race was going into it, obviously you had RHG working together. The Lottery Academy and F7R all working together, trying to, it's like trying to move pieces on a chessboard. They're all trying to move around each other and helping their teammates. And the fact no one came to a collision is, it's understandable. I thought someone would have got caught up because they're all doing different things. I thought at one point someone's going to get caught off guard, someone's going to brake too late or make a bit of a mistake. And it was pretty much faultless by all of them. So to every driver there in that big battle, well done, because it was the driving standards were brilliant. We know they're not the best. We know they can be better, but today I think it was some of the best we've seen in quite a long time. We know we had that couple at the start, but once that settled down, it turned into a really good race. And anyone at that point could have took the win, but RHG, that teamwork, it was unstoppable. Once there are unstoppable forces on their own. Never mind when there's two of them, it becomes impossible for anyone to try and make a move. But that was a brilliant race, wasn't it, Josh? It might not have been the most it might not be the most entertaining on track, but the strategic element was something that
remarkable.
even I couldn't have any idea of what was actually going on.
Yeah, I mean, it was so much to try and keep a hold of, keep up with, manage to try and plan stuff out in your head as well. There was a moment where I was wondering, hold on, are she doing the right thing? He's not getting through the field quick enough. But they had that all planned out. All the teams had their little different micro plans set out for that scenario as well. It was fantastic as a whole, and it was a very entertaining race to watch. We had enough on-track action to keep us entertained, as well as that tactical element behind the scenes as well. It was fantastic.
Indeed, and I don't think we could have asked for a better race at all. And obviously, remember, we're not here next week. We have a break week, obviously, so you'll have a nice week's break before we return to Silverstone on March the 15th. So obviously, we won't be here next week, of course. We'll make sure to come back for the PlayStation platforms, the PC platforms, and then the PCF1, which will be on Wednesday, of course. Obviously, there's always action here at PSGL, and even if every single day of the working week, so there's always something to keep an eye on and watch along. So yet again, thank you everyone in the chat for joining us throughout this race. Thank you to the drivers for driving and taking part. And thanks, of course, to our sponsors, GT Omega and Sim Racing Centre. So for now, we'll see you all the next time. Have a good one, everyone. Good night.